Chapter 431. 34 Chinese Language Net. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. Senior, the healing speed in the north of the space is faster. Su Yang had been staring at the broken hole and carefully observed it. After several confirmations, he said seriously. Su Li opened her eyes and put away the pocket-sized cave in her palm. But she didn't move for a long time. Instead, she looked to the north. Su Yang and Bai Mu were slightly confused, but soon their faces changed. A bloody flowing light flew quickly from the northern sky and stopped not far away in the blink of an eye. After the flowing light dissipated, a cold young man with a pale face showed up. He looked at Su Li and the other two coldly through the broken hole. Su Yang subconsciously glanced at Su Mu and sensed the same cold pneuma. He couldn't help but pout his mouth at the young man and transmitted the sound, "Blockhead, when did you have a twin brother?" Su Mu turned his head and ignored him. The atmosphere was silent for a long time. The cold young man finally couldn't help speaking the language of Qingshui Circle fluently. "People of Qingshui Circle, you have crossed the boundary." Su Yang and Bai Mu were shocked. Didn't they say that there was no communication between the two circles? How could this person speak the language of Qingshui Circle? Su Li didn't seem to be surprised. Her soft eyes flashed and she asked softly with a smile, "Then tell me, what is crossing the boundary?" Hearing this, Bai Chen's killing intention flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "The two circles have an agreement before. Since you have crossed the boundary." Before he finished his words, the long sword in his hand turned into a golden light. In the blink of an eye, it crossed a distance of dozens of feet and slashed at Su Li's head. "Go to hell." The golden light broke out, and the killing intention was awe-inspiring. The shrinking hole was immediately affected and had a tendency to expand. The heavy pressure emitted by the golden light immediately reminded Su Yang and Bai Mu of the martial practitioner with the blood shadow. Their faces changed and they retreated quickly. They were worried at the same time. The golden light was too strong. This person was much more powerful than the martial practitioner with the blood shadow. Could Su Jojo deal with him? Ding! A crisp sound of the sword resounded between heaven and earth. Su Li and Bai Chen separated as soon as they touched each other. Both of them couldn't control their bodies and stepped back a few steps. Gently shaking her numb arm, Su Li was astonished. This was the first time someone was on par with him in terms of strength. The descendant of the Blood Qi school really lived up to his reputation. Su Li was just surprised, but Bai Chen was completely shocked. Could the people of Qingshui Circle cultivate such a physical body? "You want to kill me?" Su Li suddenly said in a flat tone, but Bai Chen couldn't help but feel cold. This woman, whoosh! Before he could react, the space rippled, and Su Li's figure disappeared instantly. This is bad. Bai Chen's pupils constricted, and he retreated again and again in shock. But the flying sword wrapped in black light cut through the void all the way and shot toward him from behind without warning. A cold voice echoed in his ears. "Those who want me dead, I will not let a single one of them go." Su Yang grabbed Su Mu's arm excitedly, and his eyes were shining. "Blockhead, we've really found someone to rely on. That sword didn't use any sword moves, but it's definitely not weaker than any late-stage nascent soul cultivator." Su Mu helplessly tried to push Su Yang's hand away, but he failed. He could only let Su Yang do as he wished, and a trace of warmth appeared in his cold eyes. Perhaps, he chose the right path. The cold sharpness almost pierced into his heart, and he was doomed to die. Bai Chen's eyes dimmed instantly. "Master, Your Excellency, please show mercy." But at this moment, a strange and urgent voice sounded. An unknown force suddenly penetrated the void and hit Su Li's sword. The sword deviated and stabbed into Bai Chen's viscera obliquely, but it didn't hurt his heart. Su Li's eyes were cold, and her palms instantly made several gestures like butterflies flying through flowers, which fell into the flying sword. The flying sword trembled violently, passed through Bai Chen's body, and blasted a fist-sized hole, and then stabbed into the shattered void with indomitable will. AO sword skills, the first move, collapse. Su Yang was dazzled and frightened. Does Su Jojo finally show her true colors? What kind of sword skill is that? The gestures are so complicated. Tut. He scratched his head and felt ashamed of his lack of knowledge for the first time. It was not so easy to find out Su Jojo's origin. Retreat. Su Mu, who had been silent, suddenly said. He picked up Su Yang and ran away. Then a deafening roar resounded through the world. Boom! A big hole as high as the sky was blasted out in the dark and chaotic void in an instant. The gloomy sky cracks spread rapidly. The burly middle-aged man who rushed over changed his expression dramatically and shouted sternly, "Your Excellency! Stop! Do you want all the practitioners of Qingshui Circle in this circle to die?" Su Li was expressionless and continued to draw her sword. "So be it. What does it have to do with me?" You, a 7th grade practitioner, entered the passage. Does Qingshui Circle want to unilaterally tear up the agreement? Su Li was indifferent, as if she didn't hear it at all. The middle-aged man was furious. Seeing the crack in the sky getting bigger and bigger, he was extremely aggrieved, but he had to soften his tone. "Your Excellency, please calm down. Bai Chen didn't mean to be your enemy. If you want to know why he crossed the boundary, I will tell you." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Li's movements stopped. She withdrew her sword in the blink of an eye and stood there calmly, as if nothing had happened. Then, the middle-aged man saw Su Li's cold face suddenly soften. She smiled and cupped her hands. "Thank you very much." Not only did the middle-aged man not react to Su Li's sudden change, but Su Yang and Su Li were also stunned. The burly middle-aged man stared blankly at the harmless girl with a smile, standing in the broken void unscathed. His heart, which had been calm for many years, was a little cold. A moment later, Su Li and the other two followed the burly middle-aged man into the camp. Practitioners in the camp saw the bloody and dizzy Bai Chen in the hands of the burly middle-aged man and surrounded them. Many people looked at Su Li and the other two with hatred in their eyes, as if they wanted to devour them. "What are you doing? Hurry up and bring him down to treat his injuries." The burly middle-aged man glared and scolded harshly. He drove the crowd away for fear that Su Li would be unhappy again and a big fight would break out. The practitioners glanced at Su Li with hatred. Due to the majesty of the burly middle-aged man, they obediently left with Bai Chen in their arms. In the main tent, Su Li and the burly middle-aged man sat opposite each other. Su Yang and Su Mu sat next to each other with a slightly tense look. Not everyone could be as calm as Su Li when she went deep into the enemy's camp. They didn't have the confidence. "Bai Chen is not my disciple." The burly middle-aged man took a deep breath and stared at Su Li, saying in a deep voice, "His master died in the hands of people of Qingshui Circle. You and I are mortal enemies. I don't expect you to understand what I said. I just hope you can calm down. Once this circle is broken, it is not a good thing for both of us. You should know." "I don't know." Su Li interrupted him with a gentle smile, but it made the burly middle-aged man feel cold. "So, what is the so-called crossing the boundary?" "You don't know." The burly middle-aged man stared at her and raised his voice. "It's impossible." "Nothing is impossible." Su Li played with the flying sword in her hand and said quietly, "Most of the holy sects in Qingshui Circle have irreconcilable hatred with me. Do you think they will reveal the secret to me?" The burly middle-aged man's expression changed. Although he didn't speak, he couldn't hide his doubts. "Being enemies with most of the holy sects? How could you say that?" Even Su Yang and Su Mu felt that Su Li was tricking them, so they didn't feel anything. Su Li smiled helplessly and said casually, "Well, it seems that it's useless for me to talk nicely." The huge vortex outside the camp. "If I destroy it, will this circle be completely destroyed?" As soon as she said that, the burly middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. He took a deep breath and said slowly, "Don't be impatient, Your Excellency. For people at our level, the agreement between the two circles is not a secret. I will tell you. 1,000 years ago, when the passage between the two circles was opened, our Qimo circle and your Qingshui circle fought for 100 years. After countless strong men died, we finally chose to stop the war. At that time, the two sides had fought fiercely and couldn't stop at all. Therefore, the high-level officials of both sides came up with a plan to stop the war. They agreed to recuperate and fight again after 1,000 years. Now, it is less than 5 years before the battlefield opens again. Su Li listened quietly and didn't mean to speak. Su Yang couldn't hold back and asked, "What's the explanation of this small world?" The burly middle-aged man's eyes became cold. He was friendly to Su Li only because of her threat. Who was Su Yang? However, he was not sure whether Su Yang asked the question on behalf of Su Li. He could only suppress his anger and asked back, "Don't you people of Qingshui Circle know where the passage comes from?" Bloody accident of Holy Spirit. Su Mu suddenly said with surprise and doubt in his eyes. The burly middle-aged man sneered, "Yes, it seems that you have guessed it. The condition for opening the passage is not the so-called space oscillation, but flesh and blood. The flesh and blood of living creatures. No one knows the reason, but the high-level officials of our circle have done experiments. Only flesh and blood can maintain the stability of the passage. So, we need people to come in constantly to die, so that we can survive for 5 years. What? Su Yang's mind was shocked, and his face was extremely ugly. Even if he really spoke ill of holy sects before and even threatened to betray them, there was still a trace of fantasy deep in his heart. That was the only place where he had a sense of belonging. But now... Su Yang rubbed his face fiercely. He opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but he had nothing to say. Su Mu's face was stiff. Ever since his sister died, he had given up. Now that he heard what the Glory sect had done, he was not sad at all. Instead, he felt relieved. He thought to himself, "Maybe I don't owe them anything." The burly middle-aged man squinted at the two and seemed to enjoy their expressions. He said, "Do you know what's the biggest difference between Qingshui Circle and Qimo Circle?" Before Su Li answered, he continued with a smile, "Over there, the high-level officials of Qimo Circle are frank enough. All the men know the ending, but they die generously. And you are just a group of poor wretches who are deceived before death." Hearing this, Su Li finally smiled. Chapter 432. Looking at the smile on Su Li's face, the burly middle-aged man was shocked. When he said these words, he had thought that Su Li's reaction might be anger, gloomy, or even expressionless. But he didn't expect that she would smile so happily. It didn't seem to be fake at all. "Your Excellency, what are you laughing at?" He snorted tentatively, "Do you think I'm lying to you?" "On the contrary." Su Li stopped smiling and said indifferently, "I agree with you very much. If one day your Qimo Circle can really attack Qingshui Circle and destroy holy sects, it may not be a bad thing." The burly middle-aged man was at a loss and didn't know what to say. Even the senior officials of Qimo Circle still had a lot of hesitation about attacking Qingshui Circle. But now a practitioner from Qingshui Circle actually believed them. Did he become muddle-headed after practicing too much? Or the world changed so fast that he couldn't understand it? So in order to save flesh and blood consumption, your two circles agreed that no one could break the space? Yes. Then why are you guarding the exit of the passage? There are 6 exits, and this is one of them. Each of our 2 circles will guard 3 exits and no one will leave. What about me? Of course you can. If you continue to stay here and destroy the space, I will also be very troubled. Su Yang almost couldn't hold back his laughter as he watched the two of them exchange questions and answers. "Blockhead, look at this alien big shot. He has been fooled by Su Jojo. The people of Mo Circle are too gullible, aren't they? It's Qimo Circle." Su Mu corrected him sullenly and wondered why Su Yang was so sure that Su Jojo was a liar. He didn't think that if it was true, what should he do? If they were enemies with the entire Qingshui circle, Qimo circle wouldn't treat them as friends. Maybe Su Jojo could survive in that desperate situation, but he and Su Yang would definitely die without leaving any remains. An hour later, the burly middle-aged man said to Su Li with a serious face, "My name is Han Jiu, a warrior of the 7th level, which is equivalent to the practitioner of Huashan realm in your Qingshui circle. As you said, there is no right or wrong in the dispute between the two circles, only victory or defeat. Although you are an enemy of the alien race, I want to make friends with you. May I know your name?" Su Li looked at Han Jiu and smiled slightly. She opened her red lips slightly. "My surname is Su Jojo. Maybe I will also be called Su Qingshui in the future." Han Jiu heard the hidden meaning in her words, but he didn't understand it. He didn't struggle with it. He got 2 cups, picked up one of them and said with a smile, "Su Jojo. You're my friend. If we meet on the battlefield in the future, I won't hold back. I might not come to the battlefield." Su Li also picked up the wine cup, took a sip, and chuckled. Seeing this scene, Su Yang couldn't help but admire Su Li from the bottom of his heart. Was this the legendary subduing the enemy without fighting? They were mortal enemies of the two circles a second ago, and now they could sit together and drink. After the cup of wine was drunk, Han Jiu was also straightforward and directly went to the exit for Su Li. After watching Su Li and the other two leave the space, he stood in front of the calm whirlpool and stood still for a moment. Soon after he returned to the camp, he saw Bai Chen, who had been bandaged, sitting in the seat before Su Li. Why? Bai Chen's face was wrapped in a white cloth, revealing only a pair of eyes, which were full of confusion and gloom at the moment. "You heard it. She is not your enemy." Seeing the square stone in Bai Chen's hand, Han Jiu sighed in his heart, but he didn't show it on the surface. He walked to the table, sat down, and also took out a square stone. The communication stone in Qimo's circle was almost the same as the carrier rune. But in Qimo's circle, those who could have communication stones were absolutely high-level people, unlike the carrier rune in Qingshui circle, which was common. The communication stone in Bai Chen's hand came from his master. "But I think you have been cheated by her, senior," Bai Chen said bluntly. Han Jiu couldn't help but laugh. "I know what you think. I believed Su Jojo's one-sided words and told her so many secrets. Now you must think I am the biggest idiot in the world, right?" Bai Chen's ears were slightly red, and he forced himself to nod. Then he shook his head. "No. Since you know it, why did you?" "Haha." Han Jiu smiled faintly. "There is an old saying that what you hear is false, but what you see is true. Although you eavesdropped on the conversation through the communication stone, you couldn't see Su Jojo's expression and the thing on her body." Bai Chen's pupils shrank, and he saw Han Jiu's gentle face with his eyes glinting. "The treasure on Su Jojo's waist is very familiar. If it is really that, then she has enough reason to hate holy sects in Qingshui circle." Bai Chen was confused as he listened, but his mind relaxed quite a bit. He believed that Senior Han wouldn't lie to him about this kind of matter. In an ordinary inn in a mortal city not far from Yushu sect in Qingshui circle, Li Changshou was in a mortal city. Su Yang sat in front of a greasy and even a little dirty table. Looking at the table of secular wine and dishes, he looked up and saw Su Li drinking by herself. He couldn't help but be a little confused. After passing through the whirlpool, they appeared at the gate of this city. When Su Yang asked Su Li about her next plan, Su Li unexpectedly said that she was going to taste the delicious food in the human world. Su Yang thought she was joking, but now, Su Yang saw Su Li pour another glass of wine for herself and eat and drink with peanuts. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Was it really so delicious? He had eaten secular food before, but compared with spiritual wine and delicacies, it was hard to swallow. It was even worse than pig's feed. Even the pigs raised in the sect ate much better than the mortals in the secular world. But seeing Su Li eat happily, he couldn't help but waver at this moment. He couldn't help but pick up a piece of spiced beef with chopsticks and put it into his mouth. Then, a special stench of secular meat filled his mouth and nose. Ew. Bah! Su Yang bent over and spat out everything. He immediately took out a few detoxifying King from the universe ring and put them into his mouth. Su Mu didn't move his chopsticks all the time. At this moment, seeing Su Yang's face was flushed, he raised his eyebrows and said lightly, "Why bother?" Su Yang didn't know if he misheard, but there was a hint of gloating in his plain words. Su Yang touched his tongue and said with a bitter face, "It's so bad." "Senior, why do you still eat it?" Su Li glanced at him, picked up a piece of beef and ate it. She nodded with relish and said, "It tastes good. Don't eat it if you don't want to. It's a waste." Su Yang looked at Su Mu with dissatisfaction, but Su Mu closed his eyes and refused to taste the beef slices no matter what. He didn't believe it and picked up a second piece. Ew. Su Mu listened to Su Yang's complaints and felt the warm light coming in from the window. His lips, which were as flat as a knife's edge, slightly curved up. This feeling was very good. Did Su Jojo often come to the secular city to relax? He turned his head and saw Su Li's side face, but he was stunned. If he didn't see it wrong, he actually saw envy in her eyes? Envy of what? Su Mu looked over and saw a family of 3 standing in front of a vegetable stall with a satisfied smile on their faces. He couldn't understand. What was there to envy about the life of the weak? "Let's go." Su Li suddenly got up and dropped a golden leaf. She disappeared in the blink of an eye. Su Mu didn't dare to neglect and immediately disappeared with Su Yang, who was still retching. "What's that?" Under the vegetable stall, the farmer's wife suddenly felt something in her hand. She couldn't help but spread it out and saw 3 silver leaves. She was overjoyed and quickly put them away after looking around. God bless her, she could have a good new year this year. During the flight of the spirit boat, Su Mu was still absent-minded. Su Li didn't hide her action of giving the silver leaves from them. A practitioner whose cultivation was comparable to that of Yuanying realm still had compassion for ordinary mortals. What was this? Su Jojo, whom they followed, was actually a kind-hearted and innocent girl. "I want to sneak into Yushu's sect again." "What can you do?" The sudden sound transmission interrupted Su Mu's wild imagination. Yushu sect? Su Yang couldn't help but scratch his head and said, "Senior, with your strength, you will definitely be treated well if you go to Yushu's sect openly. Why do you sneak in?" Su Li glanced at Su Yang lightly, and the latter immediately shrank his neck and stopped talking. The territory of Yushu's sect covers the entire Jojo mountain range. Su Mu said at this time, "It's very easy to enter Jojo mountain range. You just need to open an entrance at the weak part of the big tactical matrix for protecting the sect. Senior, if you want us to give advice, you need a specific direction." Su Li took a deep look at him and slowly said 3 words, "T-peak." Sure enough. Su Mu breathed a sigh of relief. He had been speculating about Su Jojo's purpose of sneaking into the tea party. How could Su Jojo be interested in a few tea leaves as a reward with her strength? The only possibility was the immortal tea plant itself. "Senior, do you want to steal the immortal tea plant?" Before Su Yang's voice died away, he flew into the sky with a whoosh and stuck to the surface of the shield of the spirit boat. He couldn't get down and grimaced. Su Mu glanced at him with pity. Looking at Su Li, who just withdrew her hand, he frowned and analyzed. The immortal tea plant has become a plant spirit, and its wisdom is no lower than that of any practitioner. Plant spirits are inherently weak. Its strength may be weak, but it has lived for a long time. It has been at least 7,000 years since the founding of Yushu sect, and its cultivation is probably no worse than that of the peak of Yuanying realm. Senior, if you want to steal the tea plant without anyone knowing, I'm afraid. I know what you said. Su Li looked at the outline of the Jojo mountain range that faintly emerged in the nothingness in the distance. The big tactical matrix for protecting the sect of Yushu sect is not as simple as you think. If I really open a hole on it, it will be noticed immediately. Su Mu's expression changed slightly. Holy Tactical Matrix. Yes. Su Li nodded without surprise, you have also stayed in a holy sect. The strength of the founder of Yushu sect in those days was no less than that of any grand elder of a holy sect. If it weren't for his disappearance. Well, let's not talk about the past. Tell me what you think. This, Su Mu's thoughts were a little confused for a moment. Senior. Su Yang's eyes suddenly brightened on the shield of the spirit boat. I know how to get in. Chapter 433. Yenyang Town. Su Yang stood by the cold lake and looked a little embarrassed. Su Li looked at the sparkling water and said faintly, is this the opportunity you mentioned? Su Yang smiled embarrassedly, Senior, as you can see, there is no one on the streets of Yenyang Town. It is said that there are water monsters eating people. Yushu sect did send Pang Hua, an inherited disciple, to investigate. I also inquired about Pang Hua with the identity of a hidden disciple of Su family. He will definitely come these days. We have been here for 2 days. Su Mu stood aside and didn't forget to stab Su Yang in the heart. He didn't dare to look into Su Li's eyes. Suddenly, a gust of wind rose and Su Li disappeared in the blink of an eye. Su Yang reacted quickly and turned around. He saw a figure suddenly appear in the middle of the lake. It was Pang Hua. It turns out to be in the lake. No wonder I didn't find it. Su Yang suddenly realized. Pang Hua heard this and saw a shadow falling from the sky before he could take a breath. Then he didn't know anything. On the shore, after a short while, Su Yang and Su Mu watched Su Li withdraw the silk thread from her fingertips, and their faces changed. After Su Li removed her hand, Pang Hua opened his eyes blankly. When he turned around and saw Su Li, he immediately got up and saluted hurriedly, Master. Su Yang's scalp was numb and Su Mu's eyelids were twitching. Pang Hua was at the peak of Jindan realm, but he was controlled by Su Jiuzhou in such a short time. Call me Mr. Su Li looked at Pang Hua with the same fanaticism as Su Yuanhai in her eyes. She said calmly, what did you find under the water? Mister, there is indeed a water monster. Pang Hua took out the mountain-like body of the water monster from the storage room without hesitation and threw it on the ground. He said doubtfully, however, this water monster was originally the most common otter in the water. I don't know how it grew to such a big size. Wow, it's so big. Su Yang was amazed and touched the hard skin of the giant otter. The skin can be made into the lowest grade of spiritual armor. When Su Li saw the otter's corpse, her eyes changed instantly. She immediately jumped to the otter's head, pinched a spell to urge the flying sword to stab in. In a moment, a fragment with a transparent luster was brought out by the flying sword. What is this? Su Yang and Su Mu looked at each other and didn't recognize the fragments on Su Li's flying sword. Su Li looked solemn and felt the vibration of the mirror ring on her waist. She narrowed her eyes slightly and pretended to wipe the storage room. She whispered in her heart, Black Lotus, put it away. Black Lotus Ring also knew that the occasion was not appropriate, so it quietly appeared and collected the fragments. It was rare that it was not verbose. Once the fragment was put away, the mirror ring immediately stopped shaking. The transparent little beast crawled in the space at the edge of the mirror ring with a dignified expression. Could it be that I've been discovered? But if she was discovered, why didn't Su Li react at all? That shouldn't be the case. It had clearly killed her in her previous life, sir. After seeing Su Li's series of movements, Pang Hua stood on the otter's head in a daze and couldn't help but speak out. Su Li immediately came to her senses, and a faint smile appeared on her face. Well done. I have found the reason. It did eat something it shouldn't have. That's it. Let's go back to the sect. Seeing Su Li's smile, Pang Hua was immediately flattered and nodded. As for the two of you. Su Li turned her head to look at Su Yang and Su Mu, who were absent-minded. The latter both took 2 steps back subconsciously. When they came to their senses, their faces were very stiff. Don't be nervous. Su Li glanced at Su Mu, and her eyes finally fell on the face of Su Yang, who had a hollow smile on his face. As long as I want, I can do that at any time, but it's not necessary. Su Yang, don't forget why you turned to me. Su Yang took a deep breath and said with a sad face, Senior, I know, but I have harmed people. Can he be saved? Su Mu glanced at him in surprise. In his memory, Su Yang was not so kind. Su Li took a deep look at Su Yang and didn't answer him. She ordered softly, you were sent to the Chaos Zone. Most of your identities have been suspected by the Su family. It's not suitable for you to return to the head branch for the time being. Go to Su Yuanhai. He is my man. When you find out that someone has returned, you can go back to the head branch to test him. Understand? Hearing this, Su Yang breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He quickly patted his chest and said loudly, Don't worry, Senior. I am much smarter than Blockhead. Even if he is dead, I will not die, nor will I betray you. Su Mu turned his head away and didn't want to talk to him. Pang Hua, let's go. Su Li didn't say anything more. In the blink of an eye, she and Pang Hua turned into flowing light and disappeared into the sky. Su Yang kept a bright smile on his face. Until Su Li disappeared from his sight, he gasped and sat on the ground awkwardly with a face full of lingering fear. Oh my God, I'm so scared. What kind of soul-luring skill is that? After Pang Huazhong's operation, he seemed to want to die for Su Jouzhou. Do you think we are also bewitched by him? Pang Mu won't call Su Jouzhou's name directly. Su Mu didn't forget to add insult to injury. Su Yang rubbed his face hard, and finally looked a little serious. I feel that something is wrong. How can she be at ease with us leaving? Isn't she afraid that we will directly escape to the end of the world and never return to Jouzhou region? I will go to the 7th branch of the Su family. Su Mu glanced at Su Yang coldly. If you want to leave, do as you please. I %% yen. Su Yang's face collapsed. After a moment of confusion, he raised his head and gnashed his teeth. If I could beat you, I would have tied you up and taken you everywhere in my bag. Why would I waste time in Jouzhou region? Su Mu's icy blue eyes glanced at Su Yang's indignant face. He turned around and left, leaving a sentence lightly. I'm about to break through the middle stage of Yuanying realm. In front of the gate of Yushu sect, Pang Hua calmly took Su Li's little hand and entered the sect's big tactical matrix. The disciples passing by all saluted when they saw them, and some couldn't help asking, Senior fellow apprentice, who is this? Pang Hua smiled slightly and said, an orphan in Yenyang town. I think she is lonely and helpless, so I brought her back to raise her. Ah! Senior fellow apprentice, you are really kind-hearted. Senior fellow apprentice, you are so kind. I will also try next year. Maybe I can work for senior fellow apprentice Pang and get advice. This little girl is a blessing in disguise. With senior fellow apprentice Pang personally raising her, she may be the outstanding female disciple of Yushu's sect in the future. Pang Hua flew from the mountain gate to his own peak, and people kept praising him along the way. The inherited disciples were second only to the little holy boy and holy girl, and they had a very high status in Yushu's sect. There were many flatterers, and he had long been used to it. But this time he took Su Li with him, and he broke into a cold sweat, for fear that Su Li would be angry because of those arrogant remarks. Fortunately, Master was absent-minded all the way, and he should not have heard it, right? Not long after, the two fell into the hall on the peak. Before Pang Hua had time to apologize for what happened on the way, he was knocked out by Su Li. Pulling out the silk thread that controlled the soul, Su Li added a sleeping spell to Pang Hua, and then left the hall and flew to the T-peak. Among the mountains shrouded in clouds and mist, snow-white cranes flew by from time to time, and the disciples of Yushu's sect laughed and shouted to practice the spell. Su Li expressionlessly made a gesture, and the tactical matrix for camouflage covered her whole body. Disciples who were practicing the raining sword kept passing by, but no one could see her. When she approached the T-peak, a light flashed in her calm eyes. She fell from the sky and stopped halfway up the tea peak. Her universe ring flashed, and she put on her cloak, merged into the rocks, and shuttled quickly. Huh! A rat sneaked in. The immortal tea tree swayed gently, and there was no abnormal movement on the ground. But a human face appeared in the core of the underground tea tree, and countless roots shot towards Suli like lightning. Senior Bizhui, I mean no harm. At this time, Su Li's clear and ethereal voice echoed around the core of the tea tree through the underground. All the roots suddenly paused, and a slightly gloomy and old voice sounded in Su Li's ears. Little girl, who told you my name? Senior, you said it yourself. The ethereal voice approached, and the outline was revealed. The human face on the core stared at it carefully, looked it up and down, and thought it was only unfamiliar. Junior, I have lived for a long time, but I am not so old that my memory is muddled. How dare you lie to me? The voice of the tea tree was angry, but it did not stop Suli from approaching. In the blink of an eye, Suli stood in front of the core of the tea tree. She took off her cloak, and let all the roots pointed at her vital parts like sharp swords. She smiled sweetly. Senior, do you still remember that I have an agreement with someone? If I come back one day, I will set you free. Bijue's face changed instantly. You are that. Suli, you are still alive. Impossible. I died, and then I came back to life. Suli spoke frankly. Bizhui looked at Suli's face in surprise and doubt. After a long time, he laughed out loud. Yushu sect is really interesting. After so many years, they still send you, a little girl in Zhuji realm, to test me. Do you really think that I dare not kill people because I am bound by the tactical matrix? Senior Bizhui, don't be angry, and there is no need to test me. If people of Yushu sect find me, it will do no good to either of us. Suli still looked calm. Today, I will set you free, but I am not talented, and I want to make an agreement with you. The old face was no longer angry. He smiled and said slowly, then tell me. No one can come here for a long time, so I will listen. Whoosh! Without saying anything, Suli turned over her palm, and the flying sword appeared. She cut the palm of her left hand, and the red blood dripped along the lines on a root. Only one drop fell, and the huge and complicated runes of the tactical matrix appeared silently and automatically. They wrapped around the core of the tea tree like earthworms. Then, Bizhui saw that the red blood turned black, and instantly integrated into the runes of the tactical matrix, turning into an inconspicuous black spot. This. There is a flaw in the dragon-trapping tactical matrix. Bizhui sensed the change of the roots, and was shocked. He stared at Suli, and countless roots trembled. His huge eyes showed a humanized fear, and he said incoherently and tremblingly, your blood. What did you get? Suli, the daughter of luck. It is really you. Chapter 434. Daughter of luck. What is that? Suli stared at Bizhui with her clear eyes. She heard, daughter of luck, from Su Yuanhai, and now he heard, daughter of luck. The two names were similar and probably had the same meaning. But what did it mean? Su Yuanhai didn't know, and she could only keep her doubts in her heart at that time. But now, Senior Bizhui. Whoosh! The roots of the tree shook, and the expression on Bijue's face disappeared instantly. He said with a smile, there is nothing special about the so-called daughter of luck. You have strong luck, and you can bring good luck to everything you do. This is also a rare constitution. Suli nodded gently, and a light flashed in her eyes. She didn't ask any more. Bizhui didn't tell the truth. The constitution was the constitution, and it could only belong to her. Even if it was rare, could it make people crazy enough to cut her flesh and eat her alive? Obviously not. Senior, can we talk about the deal now? Suli turned back to the original topic, and the old eyes on the core of the tea plant immediately brightened. What do you want? I want to be the master of Jojo region. Su Li showed a formidable smile. I won't let go of anyone who forced me in the previous life, and such people are the majority in Yushu sect. I need your help. The master of Jojo region. Bizhui stared at her slightly, and said with a little more contempt, Junior, are you kidding? If I melt this tactical matrix, will you still think I am kidding? Su Li said with a smile on her calm face, my deal with you is very simple. After I set you free, you will help me at the critical moment to block the Grand Elder of Yushu sect for 20 breaths. After that, you can leave by yourself no matter whether I succeed or not. The world is big, and you are free to go. Bijue's face disappeared into the core. He admitted that he was tempted. After being imprisoned for 7,000 years, he longed for freedom more than anyone else. But Su Li's request was too loose. It was so loose that he couldn't believe it. Junior. After a long time, Bijue's face reappeared on the core, and it was clearer. He stared at Su Li's still immature face, and asked coldly, why should I believe that you will help me instead of falling into another trap? After you melt this tactical matrix, aren't you afraid that I will run away immediately, regardless of the agreement? I'm scared. Su Li raised her head and smiled confidently, but I believe that you won't offend a girl with a promising future just to avoid this little favor. Bijue's expression changed. He couldn't figure out whether Su Li really didn't understand or she was testing. Niece of Destiny has a bright future. There was nothing wrong with saying that, but which of the daughters of Providence had a good end? Old Mo Su of Yushu sect has not appeared for 2,000 years. He is probably dead. This Spirit Void Jr. is only at the late stage of soul formation. When my seal is undone, it will definitely be easy for me to stop him for 20 breaths of time. The more Bizhui thought about it, the more excited he became. Recalling the shame of thousands of years, he stared at the black spot on the tree root. After a moment of silence, he finally raised his head and suddenly said, Junior Su Li, let me tell you in advance. If the Grand Elder of Yushu sect is too strong, I will feel my life is in danger, then Senior can escape. Junior definitely won't have the slightest resentment. Su Li narrowed her eyes and said firmly. Is that true? Of course. Good. Bizhui roared and finally made a decision in his heart. A faint red light flashed in his green pupils. Su Li, I agree with your deal. In the future, you can call me, and I will definitely help you. Senior, you are really straightforward. Su Li showed a relieved smile on her face. It will take half a month to melt the tactical matrix. However, if the tactical matrix is completely melted, it will definitely be noticed by Yushu sect. So, I will destroy the nodes of the tactical matrix and then integrate fake runes. It looks the same as the original runes, but in fact, it has no binding effect at all. As she said, she pinched a gesture with both hands. The transparent runes of the tactical matrix flowed from her fingers and integrated into the tree root that was destroyed just now. In an instant, the black spot on the tree root disappeared. Bizhui tried to sense it, and he could still detect the flaw, but it was invisible on the surface. Bizhui nodded happily, that's great. You really came prepared. You've thought it through. Thank you for your hard work in the past half-month. Senior, you don't need to thank me. It's just a deal. Su Li shook her head and said in a deep voice, I can't keep myself hidden during the time of melting the tactical matrix. Please help me, Senior. Ha, it's not a big deal. You focus on melting the tactical matrix, and I won't let anyone disturb you. Bizhui laughed loudly. This was related to his freedom. Even if Su Li didn't say it, he would spare no effort to cover up the movement. Then I will start now. Su Li responded and sat down cross-legged. She cut her wrist and let the blood spill out, turning into drops of blood beads and flying to various nodes of the imprisonment tactical matrix. At the same time, her hands also turned into residual shadows, and the repaired and transparent runes of the tactical matrix flew out one after another, following the blood beads. Bijue's face was hidden in the core, but he had been paying attention to Su Li's movements all the time. Seeing that she was so focused, he felt a lot calmer and even faintly excited. A touch of expectation appeared in his old eyes. He didn't know whether his hometown was still there. After regaining freedom, he would go back and never come to Jojo region again. Immersed in joy, the old treeman didn't notice that when the dark red blood melted the tactical matrix, it also melted into the roots and spread wantonly along the veins of the tree. Not only did Bishui fail to notice it, but Black Lotus also failed to notice it. In the ring space, Black Lotus touched his chin and clicked his tongue in wonder. When did Suli find that the blood of evil ghost could also destroy the tactical matrix? But the old guy of Spirit Clan doesn't seem to keep the promise. Why does Suli trust him? Black Lotus was puzzled. Since Suli was reborn, she had never suffered any loss. She had always been tricking others. Isn't it too early to deal with Yushu sect now? What on earth is little Suli thinking? Black Lotus looked at the fragments in his hand and sighed. Which treasure did these fragments come from? They are so broken that I can't recognize them at all. She asked me to put them away without giving me a hint. I can't live on. In the desperate domain of demons and demons, a bonfire shone warmly in the ice and snow. Beside the bonfire, two people sat opposite each other. Su Buwang was holding his bare arms. His lips were blue and he kept shivering. He stared at the clothes beside the bonfire that emitted blue cold mist without blinking. On the other side of the bonfire, there was a bearded young man who was slovenly like a beggar. Su Buwang could only see the young eyes through the gaps of his messy hair. You are really reckless. You even dare to jump into the desperate lake. Don't you know that the cold breath in the lake can't be dissolved by those above Yuanying realm? The slovenly young man handed over a freshly roasted fish. Beneath his dirty face, he spoke with a voice that was as gentle as jade. I just heard that there is an immortal who can realize wishes at the bottom of the lake, so I come to have a look. Su Buwang chuckled and took a bite of the roasted fish. He said vaguely, besides, I met Senior. Senior, you have a high cultivation. You saved me from the lake with one hand. You must be more than Yuanying realm. May I know your name? The slovenly young man shook his head helplessly. This silly boy was really friendly. The spiritual firewood of Fiery Island can speed up the dispersal of the cold air in your body. Warm yourself by the fire and don't get any internal injuries. Su Buwang's eyes lit up when he heard that. He looked at the burning firewood and exclaimed, it turns out that this is the spiritual firewood of Fiery Island. It's the first time that I have seen it. Have you heard of it? The young man was stunned and immediately laughed. I should have known that you have a good background. Otherwise, you would have died long ago if you came here alone. Wow, Senior, your words are so hurtful. Su Buwang's face showed exaggerated indignation, and the young man smiled. Suddenly, his eyes moved, and the ordinary flying sword at his feet disappeared in an instant. Su Buwang's pupils shrank slightly, and he suddenly turned around to look. This made his body completely stiff and unable to breathe. There were tears in his eyes. I have escaped to here, and you still won't let me go? Behind him, two white-robed cultivators who had been hiding in the snow revealed themselves. There were originally 3 of them, but the flying sword of the person in the front had already reached his back. It was only an inch away from piercing his skin and shattering his heart. However, before he could do that, his head was already separated from his body. He died so fast. Was it the senior who killed him? Su Buwang's mind was a little confused. Suddenly he heard the cold and stern voice of the young man behind him, which was completely different from the previous gentleness. Are you from Xingtian Shrine? The remaining 2 people's faces changed slightly when their origins were known. They turned around and fled without saying anything. But before they fled a few feet away, they saw a dazzling sword light flashing in front of them. It was extremely fast and passed through their throats. You are Tian. One of them covered his throat and said 3 words with his eyes wide open. Then he died. Tian. Tian what? Su Buwang stared blankly at the three people who died in an instant. He looked back and saw the beggar-like young man sit down again, and the seemingly ordinary flying sword also returned to him. Seeing Su Buwang in a daze, the beggar-like young man smiled, and his tone was as gentle as before. You are frightened. Shengtian Shrine has been chasing me for a long time. In recent years, they have stopped a lot. I didn't expect that they would appear again today. Su Buwang was a little confused. He was sure that those people were definitely coming to kill him, but they were misunderstood by the beggar-like young man, and they were also killed by him. 3 killers in Yuanying realm couldn't live for more than a breath. What level of strength was this? Su Buwang's eyes brightened. My life of escape was over. The only self-esteem in his heart made him stop the idea of hugging the beggar-like young man's thigh immediately. He just saluted respectfully and shouted, "Senior, please take me with you." The beggar-like young man suddenly laughed. I don't accept disciples. Your temperament is similar to mine. Why don't we be friends despite the difference in age? Okay. Su Buwang immediately climbed up the pole. He cupped his hands and said cheerfully, I am Su Buwang. I am more than 1,000 years old this year. Big brother, please give me more advice. Patter, the grilled fish in the beggar-like young man's hand fell to the ground instantly. What's your name? Chapter 435. When Su Buwang saw the young beggar's face change in an instant, his heart thumped, and he ran away without saying anything. But before he could leave on his flying sword, he felt the back of his neck tighten, and the scenery around him rapidly retreated. In less than a breath's time, he was back beside the bonfire. The cold energy in your body hasn't been removed yet. Why are you running? There was a little more annoyance in the voice of the young beggar, as well as a trace of disbelief and surprise that Su Buwang could hardly detect. Su Buwang laughed hollowly for a moment, and his eyes kept rolling. When he found that he had no chance to escape, he finally cried and whined, Senior, I really don't belong to Shengtian Shrine. Those 3 people were chasing after me just now. I'm really sorry for implicating Senior. I see. The beggar looked at Su Buwang's face with a smile in his eyes. I was wondering why the people of Shengtian Shrine didn't learn the lesson, and the strength of the killer they sent was lower than last time. It turned out to be you. So you want to follow me because you want me to be your bodyguard? Seeing that the young beggar didn't mean to be angry, Su Buwang couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. He smiled awkwardly. Senior, what are you talking about? I have always been at odds with Shengtian Shrine, and so do you. We have the same enemy, so we should be united against the common enemy. Maybe I will be more powerful than you and destroy Shengtian Shrine at once. Don't you think so? The beggar looked at Su Buwang's playful look and was in a daze. Is he, your son? He's not like you at all. He doesn't seem to have inherited any of your calmness and intelligence. Instead, he's very lively. On the other side, Su Buwang sat cross-legged and sensed for a moment. He found that the cold air in his body had been completely cleared. He immediately put on his clothes and saw that the beggar was staring at him absent-mindedly. He couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. This person can't be that, right? Su Buwang felt disgusted and quickly got rid of the absurd thoughts in his mind, but he still couldn't help feeling flustered. He asked cautiously, Senior, why do you always look at me? The young beggar immediately came back to his senses. He turned around and said casually, It's nothing. Seeing you reminded me of some old matters. Oh, Su Buwang echoed and felt strange in his heart. They just met each other today. Could the senior still remember the past when he saw him? Who are you trying to fool? It can't really be that, right? Su Buwang was perturbed. The beggar suddenly asked, What wish do you want to realize by coming to the Lake of Absolute Regions? Of course I'm here to look for my mother. Su Buwang patted his chest as a matter of course. It was so beautiful that the young beggar's face changed instantly under his messy hair. He continued, My mother has been missing for many years. Although I don't know where she is, she must still be alive. I must find her. Did your father tell you all this? The young beggar's voice seemed to be suppressing something, and his tone changed. When Su Buwang heard that word, his face also changed, and he snorted, "Senior, I have no father." His father had died a long time ago, and he had died a terrible death. I overheard everything that happened to my mother. That's why I came out to look for her. Then we'll have to search carefully. The young beggar's voice fell, and his tone became low, but his eyes suddenly brightened. Su Buwang was still alive. He was very surprised. When he returned to the sect, the first news he heard was, Xingtian Shrine's evil emperor came back with his son, and the second news was, Xingtian Shrine's evil emperor killed his son in front of all his concubines. That scene was seen by many people. He always thought that Su Buwang had died, but he didn't expect that this boy was not only alive, but also reached the early stage of Yuanying realm. Was that person soft-hearted? But according to this boy's tone, it seemed that he lived a very unhappy life in Xingtian Shrine these years. The specific situation needed to be explored slowly. The young beggar's eyes were slightly gloomy, and his depression was swept away. At this moment, Su Buwang felt that the young man in front of him seemed to be a little different, but he couldn't tell specifically. The biting cold wind blew, and Su Buwang shivered. Suddenly, he heard the young man sigh. "Boy, call me Uncle Fong from now on." Xingtian Shrine, the top of the Black Cloud Mountain. In front of the towering hall, Lingli wore a black robe. His snow-white hair covered his thin face and gloomy eyes. The smell of blood was steaming. He stood silently for a moment, pushed open the door, and left a line of blood under his feet. "You're back." The shadow in the dark turned around, and there was no lack of appreciation in his tone. "Well done. 3 of the 4 talents of Ankue Valley have been killed, and most of the core disciples have been killed by you. The next top of the Tianjiao list will definitely be Xingtian Shrines." Ling Li stood silently and just looked at the black shadow coldly. The atmosphere was stagnant for a moment, and then it was broken by the laughter of the black shadow. "What? Don't tell me you want a reward. No matter whether you have a relationship with me or not, you have the blood of my Ling family flowing in your body. It is your mission to be loyal to Xingtian Shrine." "Li. I'm tired of hearing the 3 words of Lihan Tablet." Ling Li finally spoke in a flat tone, and his long and narrow eyes reflected the cold silver light. "How did you find Su Buwang?" "Oh. Have you found him?" The black shadow smiled. "That bastard is really stupid. Although he has the Yang Jade mask, he has been using his real name to leave traces everywhere. How difficult it is for me to find him. But he is very tough. I sent people to find him several times, but they all failed. I told you, don't touch him." Ling Li spoke slowly, and there was a pressure around him, but it couldn't affect the black shadow. The black shadow squinted and glanced at the corner of his clothes that was still dripping with blood. "The matter of Huangxing Hall is over. Why should I keep him? Bloodline is above everything. You know, I will never allow. He is not a member of the Ling family." Ling Li interrupted the words of the black shadow, and his words were full of killing intent. "I can kill the talents of Ankue Valley, and I can also kill the talents of Xingtian Shrine. How dare you?" The black shadow's eyes were full of anger, but Ling Li laughed coldly. "Not all the people of Xingtian Shrine are from the Ling family. I didn't violate the oath at all. It's not a good deal to lose the top of the Tianjiao list for Su Buwang this year. Are you threatening me? Ling Li, it seems that you think your wings are strong enough. How dare you disobey me?" The black shadow approached slowly, and Ling Li smiled faintly. "I don't dare. I'm just stating a fact. The Lord of Xingtian Palace never makes a losing deal. I leave." After that, Ling Li nodded slightly and turned away, leaving only a faint smell of blood. The black shadow was silent, as if anger was slowly accumulating, but it didn't break out until Ling Li's back disappeared behind the palace gate. Monitor Su Buwang's whereabouts. After the Tianjiao list, take action. Yes, Lord. In the addendum, Ling Li took off his black robe expressionlessly and threw it aside, revealing dense wounds, some of which were so deep that bones could be seen, and the beating organs could be vaguely seen. How could it be so easy to kill the second talent of Ankoe Valley, and dozens of inherited disciples who had the opportunity to become talents? Especially in the case that he couldn't expose his origin, he could only fight with his life for a chance to win. He looked at the water mirror that appeared in the nothingness and touched the hole next to his heart. There was still a trace of sharp metal intent, which was constantly eroding his flesh and blood. This shot almost made him go to see Li. Ling Li, don't go out to kill anymore. Jing Xian's tear-stained face was reflected in the half-mirror floating on the side. Ling Li didn't seem to hear it. He opened the healing tactical matrix and sat cross-legged in the center, but he didn't meditate. Instead, a jade bone mask appeared in his hand, jade mask. Sensing the indistinct pneuma on the mask, Ling Li's cold face instantly softened. I should have reunited with you long ago, but when I think of Wang, how could he be at ease? Especially when, that old fellow had actually tracked down Wang's tracks. Although he had temporarily stabilized the situation with the prodigy's role, once the prodigy's role was finalized, Wang would definitely be in danger again. Before the Tianjiao list is determined, I must send him to Tianhe sect. If not, I must send him to a force that Xingtian Shrine absolutely can't reach. Ling Li fell to the ground powerlessly and fell asleep. The healing tactical matrix was still shining with green fluorescence, and Jing Xian's sobs were faintly heard. In the blink of an eye, 1 month passed in a flash. Zhouzhou region was quiet and peaceful. Except for some small sects fighting with each other, the 25 sects were as calm as a pool of stagnant water. No one mentioned the tea party for immortals. At this moment, in the seemingly calm tea peak of Yushu sect, Su Li stood quietly in front of the core of the green tea plant with a pale face. When she saw the soul-stirring blood color in the core of the tea plant, a smile appeared on her face. At this time, Bijouet's face appeared on the surface of the core of the tea plant, which was less lively than a month ago. Master. The roots swayed and surrounded Su Li like stars around the moon, as if they were worshipping the emperor. Black Lotus in the Black Lotus ring stared at the puppet-like tea plant in a daze, and a strong chill emerged from the bottom of his heart. Why did Su Li's talent awaken so quickly and so strangely? He didn't notice it at all. How did Su Li know it? Su Li pursed her lips and asked softly, tell me everything about me in those days, no matter how big or small. What is the daughter of luck? Yes, master. Bizhui answered blankly, I have heard a lot of legends about the daughter of luck. This kind of woman is born to condense luck in herself and has endless opportunities. She is the unique talent in the cultivation circle. The heavenly Tao is constant and will definitely not allow such a woman to appear. Therefore, the daughter of Providence will not be born through normal means. Throughout history, the daughter of Providence has been forcefully calculated and arranged to be born by almighty cultivators who are proficient in numerology. Speaking of this, Bizhui looked at Su Li blankly, Master, everything you have experienced since you were born is deliberately arranged by others. You constantly condense luck and provide opportunities for others, until heaven is angry and people resent, and you can't have a good end. Chapter 436. No good end, Su Li murmured. Her lips trembled slightly, and her bloodless face became more haggard. She sat down slowly, and her face sank into her arms, completely covering her fragile look. Little Su Li, you, Black Lotus called her softly, but the second half of the sentence was stuck in his throat. He didn't know what to say. He scratched his head with a headache. From the moment Su Yuanhai said the words, the daughter of destiny, he had a hunch that it had something to do with the unlucky daughter of destiny. He was afraid that Su Li couldn't bear it and would go crazy like before, so he didn't dare to mention a word. He just wanted to tell Su Li when she was stronger. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. The immortal tea plant was controlled, which completely disrupted his plan. It was so quiet in the core space of the tea plant that even a pin drop could be heard. Only Suli was lying on her knees in silence, and her dark eyes were shining with an incomprehensible light. She had thought a lot about the previous life and told herself that no matter how cruel the truth was, she would rather regret after knowing the truth than live a muddle-headed life. But now, she was really confused. Bishui told her that everything was fake. The people and things in the previous life, as well as her life, were just plots arranged by others, and she was a puppet in the hands of the behind-the-scenes person. When the strings connecting the puppet were broken one day, would the puppet's life come to an end? Who is that person? Su Li's hoarse voice echoed in the space. I don't know, but he must be at the top of the pyramid in Qingshui Circle. Otherwise, how could he take advantage of the loophole under the nose of natural law? If it were someone with low cultivation, he would have died because of the backfire of natural law, and you couldn't have been born. Then, Su Li stood up in Black Lotus's uneasy eyes. She straightened her back and took a deep breath. Then, she suddenly opened her eyes, and her eyes were bright and breathtaking. In other words, my birth parents and I are just chess pieces in the hands of others. We don't have any dignity as human beings. She smiled, and her smile was full of mockery. I once swore that after my rebirth, I would never become anyone's chess piece again. But in the end, it was just a dream. Outside the game is still a game. I can't escape even if I have wings. Now, Black Lotus, tell me, am I still a chess piece? Of course not. Looking at Su Li's calm smile, Black Lotus couldn't help but shiver. He quickly comforted her, as long as I am here, you can definitely catch those bastards who played with you and punish them one by one. Su Li curled her lips slightly and instantly covered all the fluctuating emotions, I think so too. Bishui, do you know the origin of a person named Ling Li in the bloody accident of Holy Spirit 1,000 years ago? This old servant doesn't know. Back then, only those geniuses who were on the prodigy list left behind a great reputation. The others were all lost in the crowd. Su Li was surprised. Was Ling Li not on the Tianjiao list? Fang Yuan ranked second, who was the first on the Tianjiao list at that time. It was a holy son of the holy sect of the Evil Circle. His name was Evil Emperor. I don't know his real name. He occupied the first place on the Tianjiao list for 1,000 years until he was over 2,000 years old. Do you know his name? I don't know. Su Li asked a lot of questions, including what should be asked and what shouldn't be asked. She didn't stop until a few days later when she had no more questions. She sighed for a moment and turned her hand over. A pocket-sized cave appeared in her hand. Then the cave enlarged rapidly in the core space until it became the size of a normal house. Su Li waved her hand indifferently, and the stone door of the cave opened automatically. A pool of deep and clear water appeared in it. All the lotus leaves of Tianyu lotus were in full bloom, and a strong fragrance drifted out. Bishui, instill all the power of enlightenment you have accumulated to me. As soon as Su Li finished her words, Bishui immediately waved his branches. The core of the tea tree, which was as high as a person, cracked a little. A large amount of fragrant essence of enlightenment flowed out, and then turned into water lines that flew into the nothingness and integrated into Su Li's body. The next moment, Su Li immediately sensed that there were more thoughts in her mind, which was similar to the feeling of using the soul stone last time. But this time, it was not for the secret method of the soul, but for Sueyu tactics. Black Lotus was stunned when he saw this scene. An absurd thought flashed in his mind, little Su Li, are you going to forcibly break through the second level of Sueyu tactics? Are you crazy? What was Sueyu tactics? It was the most precious treasure of the Kueyu Palace in ancient times. It was extremely difficult to understand it. He knew that Su Li was extremely difficult to practice it, and she was still stuck in the first level. But it was not strange. Even in ancient times, most of the disciples of the Kuei-yu Palace who practiced Suei-yu tactics were stuck in the first level of Suei-yu tactics all their lives, and they couldn't understand the true meaning of Suei-yu tactics. But it didn't hinder practice. Many people even reached the level of the mighty in ancient times by only relying on the first level of Suei-yu tactics. Even those powerful people couldn't break through the second level. Su Li was just in Zhuji realm now. How could she dream of breaking through? Wasn't she crazy? Time is running out. Su Li said expressionlessly. She didn't stop moving. She picked up the Tianyu lotus and crushed it. Then she said the second half of the sentence, "Look at Bizhui." Black Lotus was stunned. He looked at the old face on the core. After sensing it carefully, his face changed slightly. The erosion is deepening. The power in my blood can't be controlled. Su Li extracted the essence of the Tianyu lotus drop by drop and stored it in the prepared jade bottle. She said casually, "I have eroded his mind, and the poison in his blood is still invading his vitality. It won't take long for Yushu's sect to notice its abnormality. I have to do it before that." Black Lotus gasped and couldn't help asking, "How much time do you have?" "At most, 10 years. 10 years? Black Lotus was so scared that his voice became sharp. "It's too short. What can you do in 10 years? It will take you several years to cultivate at the peak of Zhuji realm. After breaking through Zhuji realm, you will be watched more closely by the natural law. You can't do anything at will. There are many old monsters in the 25 sections. You don't have the strength of the peak of Huashan realm. How can you escape unscathed? So, I'll take a gamble." Su Li picked up the jade bottle and shook it. Looking at the transparent juice in the jade bottle, a deep light appeared in her eyes. "Dongfang Wuxue." "Yes, master." A phantom floated out of the cave and looked at the remaining Tianyu lotus with a touch of desire in his eyes. Su Li raised her eyes and said in a gentle tone, "I have refined the cave completely. I can set you free at any time. Originally, I wanted to find a physical body for you to possess. But there are many restrictions in possession, which are not good for your practice." Master, Dongfang Wuxue was moved. Hearing this, he already understood Su Li's plan. The Tianyu lotus was the best container for cultivating a physical body. Now everything was ready. Only a little bit of vitality was needed. "Bizhui." Su Li called him in a low voice. The roots at the end of the core of the swaying giant tree behind her immediately fell off and turned into green powder, wrapping Dongfang Wuxue with strong vitality. At the same time, Su Li stretched out her hand and grasped. The connection between Dongfang Wuxue and the cave was instantly cut off. The Tianyu lotus automatically split open and wrapped Dongfang Wushue's phantom in it, turning it into a green cocoon. After that, Su Li waved her hand to seal the cave, and her mind quickly sank into the second level of Suei-yu tactics. She wanted to see what was so special about this cultivation technique that had been highly respected since the ancient times. Black Lotus watched her make all the arrangements in a daze and couldn't help swallowing. In his opinion, this poor girl, who had been played by others all her life, became unfathomable for the first time in his eyes. It turns out that her goal is Bizhui from the beginning to the end. This plan is interlocking and she makes use of Bizhui to the extreme. She is so shrewd. Did she plan before she knew that she could go to the head branch of the Su family? Black Lotus suddenly shuddered with fear. Would I be used by Su Li and abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes one day, just like Bizhui? Seeing Bijue's almost dull face, Black Lotus shuddered. "No, I'm an ancient treasure. How could Su Li, that little girl, hurt me?" Black Lotus's voice became lower and lower in the end. He looked at Su Li's little face, which was immersed in enlightenment, and his eyes became complicated. "I hope that day won't come." The sun was shining brightly in the mountain. Su Yang was lying on the tree with a blade of grass in his mouth. Watching Su Mu practicing magic under the tree, he felt bored and pursed his lips. He said vaguely, "Blockhead, you've been practicing for 2 months. Don't you feel bored? I mean, did Su Jojo die in Yushu sect? If she died, Su Yang's face suddenly changed slightly and he rolled down from the tree. The next moment. Crack. The huge tree was divided into 2 halves by a sword light. Yen Zai walked slowly in the smoke and dust with a cold face and said in a cold tone, "If you say one more bad word about the master, NI sect will not let you live." Su Yang got up from the ground with his face covered in dirt and cursed angrily, "Yen Zai, you son of a bitch. You play dirty every time. If you have the ability, don't use your sword skills. Let's have a good fight. You have stayed in Tianhe sect for 1,000 years, but your cultivation has not advanced but regressed. You are getting more and more shameless." Yen Zai snorted coldly and turned to look at Su Mu, who was covered with ice chips. He frowned and said nothing. Su Yang was so angry that his eyes turned red. He said angrily, "Well, Yen Zai, after a trip to Reincarnation Mirror, you are so arrogant. If it weren't for your weird sword skills, how could I not be your opponent? The sword skills that the master taught me are extraordinary." Yen Zai heard him praising the sword skills, and there was a trace of admiration in his eyes. Su Yang felt disgusted and wiped his cold sweat. He muttered, "Forget it. I won't argue with a person whose soul is controlled." Su Mu stopped casting the spell. He glanced at the 2 of them and didn't say anything. Then he continued to cast the spell. Ice chips flew everywhere. Chapter 437. In the core space of the tea plant, Su Li sat cross-legged in the nothingness like a statue. It was really not so easy to break through Sueyu tactics. With the help of the essence of enlightenment and Tianyu lotus, she fumbled in countless thoughts, but she could not break through the bottleneck of Sueyu tactics, which seemed to be as thin as paper. Black Lotus appeared. He glanced at Dongfang Wuxue, who was still rebuilding his physical body, and sighed softly. It seemed that Su Li heard Black Lotus's sigh, and made a move in the next moment. With a crisp sound, the jade token in her right hand was shattered. In the horrified eyes of Black Lotus, she poured all the remaining juice of Tianyu Lotus into the awareness sea. The thousands of thoughts immediately multiplied exponentially. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 1,000,000 thoughts, and they were moving toward 10 million. In a split second, Su Li had a splitting headache, and her waterfall-like black hair turned into white snow in the blink of an eye. "Su Li, wake up." Black Lotus's anxious and sharp voice came into the awareness sea, "The number of thoughts is beyond the limit you can bear. If you hold on, your head will explode like fireworks, and you will die. Su Li, do you hear me?" Su Li tightened her lips, gritted her teeth, and continued to push the thoughts. Her mouth and nose were bleeding, and she was indifferent. She could not find the breakthrough of Sueyu tactics with tens of thousands of deduction routes. What about hundreds of thousands, millions, or even tens of thousands of kinds? Snap! It seemed that the sound of a rope breaking came from her head, and her snow-white hair was stained with blood in the blink of an eye. Black Lotus's heart trembled, and he dared not to disturb Su Li, for fear that his voice would be the last straw and completely crush Su Li's mind. Snap! 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 More and more sounds appeared. Su Li, who was wandering in the thoughts in the awareness sea, finally sensed the signs of death. If she continued, she would die. Did I fail? Su Li suddenly opened her eyes, and her eyes were dim. She saw the thoughts in the awareness sea constantly falling into nothingness because of her loosened mind. Suddenly, she had a thought, and her mind sank with the thoughts. The breath of life disappeared instantly. Su Li. Black Lotus was horrified. He looked up and saw the dull face on the core of the tea plant. He thought silently for a moment, and suddenly found that what he could do now was to wait. In the darkness of nothingness, there were thoughts that turned into specks of white light, just like the starry sky. As it continued to sink, the white light gradually disappeared, until finally, only darkness remained. In such darkness, Suli couldn't even feel her own existence. If she didn't have a trace of obsession in her heart, she would have disappeared with the idea. After a long time, the darkness faded. Suli opened her eyes weakly and saw a secular city without color. What is this place? As her mind shook slightly, Suli looked down and saw a pair of almost transparent palms. She was silent for a while and walked to the front of the city. As he neared the entrance of the small city, he could hear the bustling sounds of the city. Suli narrowed her eyes. She faintly felt a sense of familiarity, but she had no impression after thinking about it carefully. There were 2 guards standing at the gate of the city. From time to time, they came to ask the identity of the people coming and going, but they never looked at Suli. Can't see me? Suli thought to herself and stepped into the city gate. As expected, the guards did not stop her. But the moment she stepped into the city gate, the surrounding scenery suddenly flowed backward. In the blink of an eye, Suli returned to the original place. Can't get close. Suli had a guess in her mind. She tried to enter the city several times, but she returned to the original place every time. It seemed that she could only see this fragment. Returning to the outside of the city gate again, Suli looked at the black and white world that was incompatible with her. There was a trace of understanding in her eyes. The constantly repeating memory fragments. Whose memory were these? Suli asked herself. Finally, she sighed softly and took a step back. Then, everything in front of her returned to darkness, but Suli was very calm. She chose a new direction and entered the next memory fragment soon after. This time, it was not the city gate, but a place that Suli was familiar with. Yunshan Yard, Suli whispered softly and walked to the yard in her memory with ease. She saw the girl in cotton clothes sitting alone on the ground and playing. The foster mother next to her was looking at her with a smile and mending new clothes for her. Suli stared at this scene in a daze. After a long time, she walked to the girl and gently squatted down. At this moment, the previous life and the current life seemed to break through the change of time and space and overlapped. The next moment, the memory fragments flowed backward. Suli returned to the outside of Yunshan Yard. After a moment of silence, she walked to the yard where Su Yuanhai used to live. But the fragments flowed backward again before she reached the yard. In this memory, did she still not know Su Yuanhai? Without trying again, Suli withdrew from the fragment and continued to look for the next memory. The fragments, either short or long, gradually pieced together the blank childhood memory. Suli, like an outsider, calmly watched the scenes that happened as Su Yuanhai said. She saw the ecstatic faces of the dead Su Huanyi and his brother, the young Su Huanli, and the vague outline of the black shadow that fed her the illusionarizing powder. In the end, everything returned to darkness. Su Li's eyes were absolutely calm. Although she knew in her heart that this was what she experienced in her previous life as a child, she couldn't empathize with it. It was as if she was looking at the memory of a stranger. Even if I see the memory fragments, I can't go back. Is it the effect of the illusionarizing powder? Suli thought and turned away without any reluctance. The darkness hadn't disappeared yet. Dullness and loneliness followed her like a shadow. Suli gradually felt cold. After experiencing so many memory fragments, her soul had been too weak. It wouldn't take long for it to dissipate. If it really dissipated, it would be no different from death, leaving only a physical body for others to possess. But what Suli was thinking now was not death. She looked at the deep darkness, and her eyes were full of desire. Time passed gradually. After a long time, Suli found that she couldn't walk anymore. Her lower body disappeared, so she could only crawl. The boundless darkness made people desperate. The light in Su Li's eyes faded gradually, but the obsession was still there. The crystal soul flew out spots of white light and dotted the darkness. As the upper body also began to disappear, Su Li's mind shook and let out a slight sigh. But she still didn't give up and kept moving toward the unknown depths. Finally, at a certain moment, her hands also disappeared, leaving only her head. Su Li's almost transparent eyes flickered with a crazy obsession. She bit the ground with her teeth and kept moving. She didn't know what was the obsession that supported her to keep moving, but she knew that she had to move forward. The white light spots illuminated a small area, but Su Li couldn't see it. She only had the lower half of her face left, but she was still moving forward tirelessly. Gradually, the lower half of her face disappeared, and she couldn't move forward anymore. At the moment when the soul completely disappeared, the light of the obsession suddenly shone and shone to every corner of the dark space. At this moment, Su Li suddenly saw everything. She didn't know what else she was looking at. In her eyes, there were countless threads intertwined together, and many parallel threads crisscrossed without any intersection. Instinctively, Su Li stretched out her mind and touched one of the bright red threads. Suddenly, a mountain-like soul fragment in the distance suddenly approached and rushed into Su Li's mind. The substantial soul power wrapped Su Li and quickly nourished Su Li's soul, which was damaged to the extreme. In less than a breath, Su Li's mind projection reappeared. This time, it was no longer a phantom, but a real body, indestructible. All kinds of changes happened so fast that Su Li didn't have time to think too much. The threads in front of her all faded away, and then a huge and messy primitive memory washed over her. Su Li only had time to remember a few words, and the torrent of memory completely disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Sin Clan. Lihan Tablet. Su Li looked at the gradually darkening space around her and murmured to herself. Her mind was fixed on the warm picture of a couple holding swaddling clothes, but she couldn't see the couple's faces clearly. It's over. Su Li didn't know what happened to her, but she instinctively had a lot of abilities. While the space was not completely dark, she pointed between her fingers and gathered the white light into a light door. Then she stepped into it without hesitation. The next moment, Su Li suddenly opened her eyes and saw the familiar core space of the tea plant. A faint thread was reflected in her eyes, but the thread soon blurred. However, she still saw clearly that the two ends of the thread were connected to her and Black Lotus. The Daughter of Destiny, a thought flashed in Su Li's mind. Before she thought about it, she heard Black Lotus shouting, "Master, you are finally alive." Woo! Su Li raised her hand and saw the black shadow of Black Lotus ring, which was much clearer than before. She was slightly shocked. How long has it been? Subconsciously, she turned her head to look at Bizhui, but Bizhui was still the same as before. Seeing that Su Li seemed to have no soul injury, Black Lotus also breathed a sigh of relief and rolled his eyes. "You have lost your breath for 5 days. I almost thought you were dead, and I was about to find a new master." Really? Su Li raised her eyebrows. "Then I'm a little curious about what will happen to you if you fall into the hands of Yushu sect." Black Lotus's face darkened. As a treasure of Ghost Clan, how could it end well if it fell into the hands of Human Clan? Even if Black Lotus ring could be kept in the end, his spiritual body would definitely be used to refine elixirs. "Little Su Li, can't you save me some face?" Black Lotus sighed helplessly. After a moment of silence, he finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked aloud, "You have maintained that weird state for 7 days. What did you do? Did you really break through the second level of Sueyu tactics?" Su Li shook her head and smiled faintly. "It is not so easy to break through the second level of Sueyu tactics." "Then why are you not anxious?" Black Lotus couldn't understand, but Su Li ignored him and turned to Bizhui. "From now on, pay close attention to all the actions of Yushu's sect and report to me at any time." Hearing her instructions, Black Lotus didn't care about the previous problem and clapped his hands in amazement. As strong as the old monsters of Yushu's sect, they will never think that Immortal Tea Plant is a traitor. "Su Li, your move is really wonderful." Chapter 438. The Poisonous Wife. Chapter 438. Stupid donkey. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 439. What? There was a slight sound of surprise in the nothingness, and then it disappeared in an instant. Suli stretched out her hand, and a long sword flew out from the weapon rack behind her and floated in front of her. She made a strange gesture in the blink of an eye and poured it into the long sword. The ordinary long sword was instantly plated with a layer of cyan light, and then it shot out like a snake. AO sword skills, the sword raining skill. There was a cold snort in the nothingness. The purple light condensed in the middle-aged man's hand and turned into a sword again. He rushed forward and cut dozens of times at a speed that Suli couldn't see clearly. Ding! 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 The two swords collided fiercely, and sparks flew everywhere. Suli changed the gesture in her hand and concentrated on resisting the attack. Although she was still affected by the blank consciousness, she had time to react because of the distance and managed to maintain the situation. Every time after the blank consciousness, there was a black light flowing in Suli's eyes, and the discomfort was dispelled faster and faster. They collided hundreds of times, and neither of them showed any fatigue. Swish! The middle-aged man used old moves and showed weakness. Suli, who was supposed to be blank and unable to attack, suddenly became clear. She slipped into the middle-aged man's arms and held the hilt with one hand. The power of pneuma and blood burst out, and the long sword immediately turned into an electric light and penetrated the middle-aged man's chest. Break! Boom! The sword exploded, and a basin-sized hole was blown out of the middle-aged man's chest. All the internal organs were shattered, but the middle-aged man seemed to feel no pain. He turned his wrist, and the purple light sword suddenly cut to Suli's neck. Suli's throat was immediately scratched with blood, but she still didn't avoid it. Her eyes were terrible. Swish! The broken sword crossed the nothingness, and the middle-aged man's head flew high. All the movements stopped abruptly. Suli gently breathed out and pushed away the long sword on her neck. She stepped back a few steps and stood in front of the headless middle-aged man. She wiped the wound on her neck, which was 2 inches deep. The high platform disappeared, and the steps of the star path appeared. Different from before, the white steps were covered with blood and became dark red. Junior, you are good. You have an hour to rest. If you don't step into the 4th test within an hour, the 3rd stone step will collapse. You know the result very well. Suli heard the familiar voice, but she turned a deaf ear to it. She sat down cross-legged and mobilized her pneuma and blood to recover from the injury. Her pale face gradually became ruddy, and the wound on her neck was shrinking. But it was much slower than before. No matter how strong the physical body is, there is still a limit. I won't be able to fully recover in a short period of time. With this thought in mind, Suli looked up at the 4th stone step not far away. There are still 15 more battles like this, and every step will be more dangerous than before. Her brows furrowed imperceptibly. If she really relied on her own strength to complete the entire journey, she would almost certainly die. This person said that I need to comprehend a trace of his sword. But a sword is a sword. How can there be a difference between you and me? She didn't understand. She could only recall the unconscious state she had been in during the battle. As she thought about it, the hour quickly came to an end. Suli stood up, and the red scar on the side of her neck gradually fell off, revealing the red new skin. She was decisive and stepped on the 4th stone step without hesitation. The life and death battle started again. After a long and short period of time, the 4th stone step was dyed red with blood. Suli's figure reappeared. As soon as she touched the ground, her legs became weak. She knelt on the stone step and gasped. There were bloody holes left by the sword all over her body, and there was no good flesh. After an hour, this stone step will collapse. Junior, you are very good. Perform well. The deep voice echoed in her ears, and there seemed to be a hint of a smile. Suli wiped the blood on the corner of her eyes expressionlessly. She glanced at the 5th step and sat down cross-legged to take the time to heal. A short period of time passed in the blink of an eye. Su Li opened her eyes on time. She glanced at the injuries on her body that were mostly healed and had little pneuma and blood left. Then she silently stepped on the 5th stone step. This time, the time became longer. The 5th stone step was soon dyed red, and the blood turned from bright red to dark red. When it was about to dry up, Su Li's tottering figure appeared and smashed on the stone step, motionless. The voice in the air sounded again, and it was filled with emotion. I've seen countless geniuses in my life, but I've only seen one woman like you, who clearly has heaven-defying talent, but is still so ruthless to herself. You're the second. Su Li had no strength to respond, and she was too lazy to respond. She lay on the ground, closed her eyes, and let the Sueyu tactics in her body run automatically to stabilize her body that was about to break. Her pneuma and blood were exhausted, and only half of her genuine energy was left. The only good news was that her bones were hard enough after being tempered. Even if she was directly hit by the purple light, there were only cracks, but not directly broken. I admire your courage to use your physical body to forcibly take the sword and realize it. But this approach is likely to be useless. You'd better save your strength and survive the next test. Even if you can't learn my real skills, you can still go out alive. You can't live long with only the courage of an ordinary man. If you die, everything will be gone. The deep and heavy voice echoed in Su Li's ears, constantly encouraging Su Li to give up comprehending the sword. Su Li was not moved, and seized every minute to heal. After the persuasion of the voice in the nothingness failed, the soft voice gradually became cold and hard. You have 4 hours to heal. Take care. The starry sky returned to silence. An hour later, Su Li barely propped herself up from the ground and sat cross-legged. A hint of obscurity flashed through her eyes. The attitude of the voice was a little strange. She looked up and saw the 6th stone step that had appeared. Her eyes flashed, and then she closed her eyes again to sink into the realization. She had taken thousands of swords of purple light, and finally she gained something. 4 hours are almost up. Junior, you should continue. A reminder came from the nothingness on time. Su Li slowly opened her eyes with indifferent eyes. She propped up her broken body and walked to the 6th stone step. At the same time, she silently counted down in her heart. Until the last breath of 4 hours, the stone step under her feet showed no sign of breaking. The so-called time limit was simply a lie. Su Li felt cold in her heart, but she did not show it. She did not stop on the 6th stone step. Boom! The battle began again. After a long time, Su Li dragged her bruised body and smashed into the stone step again. Her breath was so weak that it was almost gone. It seemed that she would be completely cut off and die in the next moment. However, this breath was very strong. After the Sueyu tactic circulated in her body for a moment, Su Li's breath gradually became heavy. After a while, she opened her eyes, and there was a deep weakness in her eyes. Why? Your persistence is meaningless. If nothing goes wrong, the 7th step will be your burial place. The voice appeared as before with a trace of pity. It will be a pity if you die prematurely with such talent. I will give you a way to live now. If you retreat now, I will let you leave alive, but don't think about the reward of the test of the star path. If you insist on continuing, I can't save you because of the limitation of the star path. The voice lowered, as if waiting for Su Li's answer. A faint light flashed in Su Li's eyes. After a moment of silence, she asked softly, Senior, I know a little about the star path. According to the iron law of the star path, there will be a reward of the star path at the 5th stone step. Why your star path doesn't have it? The voice suddenly stopped. After a moment, it replied coldly, no means no. The so-called iron law is just to be broken. You can't pass the test, but it doesn't mean that others can't. Su Li was suddenly enlightened. When the owner of the voice thought that she would choose to quit without hesitation, she asked again, how much time do I have to heal this time? The implication was that she wanted to continue the test. Stubborn. 10 hours. There was a hint of anger in the voice beside his ear, but it faded away and disappeared into nothingness. Su Li's eyes drooped slightly, and a trace of imperceptible sarcasm appeared at the corner of her mouth. Then she sat up cross-legged. No matter how serious her injury was, she ran the Sueyu tactics to restore her genuine energy. Seeing this, the owner of the voice in the dark showed a determined sneer. The sharp and harsh voice echoed in the area. Idiot who is courting death, no one can take away my things. While it was sneering, it did not find that the genuine energy of Sueyu tactics in the depths of Su Li's body was transformed into green vitality, moistening all parts of her body. All the broken meridians and bones were getting better at a speed visible to the naked eye. But all this was only limited to the inside of her body. From the outside, Su Li was still seriously injured and dying. Sometimes the Ghost Valley meditation direction obtained from the reincarnation mirror is more useful than Sueyu tactics. With this thought flashing in her mind, Su Li closed her eyes to hide the black light in them. She continued to run the Sueyu tactics to cover up the traces of healing. Her hands were full of cracks, but Su Li only repaired to the depth of the bones. She controlled not to grow flesh and blood. It was not until the 10th hour that a layer of dry flesh was attached to her hands. It's time, Junior. In the nothingness, the deep voice emerged again, and a pressure appeared out of nowhere, forcing Su Li to continue moving forward. Su Li stood up and glanced at the empty starry sky. Without saying much, she stepped on the 7th step, which was doomed to death in the eyes of the existence in the nothingness. A few days later, as soon as Su Li, who was covered with blood, appeared, she softly lay on the steps. There was a huge blood hole in her chest, which was the size of a fist. The granulation inside was slowly wriggling to repair the wound, but the speed was extremely slow. Her pneuma was extremely weak, like a candle flame swaying in the wind, which seemed to be extinguished by a blow. Junior, you are really lucky. You didn't die. The deep voice in her ears was a little colder, but it was not obvious. Go to the next step after 20 hours. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance to live. Su Li closed her eyes and didn't hear what the voice said at all. At this moment, she was immersed in the last sword light. The extremely gorgeous purple intent, the sharpness that could cut everything. She finally understood what it was. The sword intent, when practiced to the extreme, could cut the void. That was the sword intent that could cut the mind. Chapter 440. Time passed in the blink of an eye. When the 10th hour came, Su Li stood up and dragged her seemingly broken body to the 8th step without the reminder of the voice in the nothingness. Whoosh, the scene changed, and what came into view was the same high platform as before. Su Li walked to the weapon rack and picked up a long sword. She turned into a residual shadow and rushed to the middle-aged man without saying a word. His desperate stance was exactly the same as the previous 6 times. The existence in the nothingness looked coldly at the blood rain on the high platform, and a cold light flashed in its eyes. It thought that Su Li would die at the 5th step, but it didn't expect that this woman's toughness was far beyond its imagination. Unconsciously, she had persisted to the 8th step. I've already used half of the sword intent left behind in the inheritance, yet a mere foundation establishment cultivator managed to survive until now. Where did this monster come from? This is simply absurd. It muttered to itself with anger and shock. There was a limit to changing the inheritance rules of the Star Road, and it was quite dangerous for him. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not want to take that risk. Let's wait and see. If it really comes to that, I won't allow anyone to take my things. Boom. 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 On the high platform, the two of them turned into afterimages and flickered crazily. Sword shadows were unceasing, and blood rained down. It was hard to tell whose blood it was. Su Li waved the long sword and released the control from time to time. She pinched the formula with both hands and switched between AO sword skills and Suishing skills seamlessly and freely. She was much more skillful than when she set foot on the star path. If Su Li's waving of the sword was just at the beginning of the rudimentary realm, as she fought with all her strength again and again, her sword was quickly polished and became smooth and perfect. The existence in the darkness sensed this change, and its expression became even more gloomy. Schwa. The middle-aged man took a step back, flicked his wrist, and changed the momentum of his sword. The dense purple sword light instantly turned into a sword net, and enveloped him. Killing move. Su Li's eyes sharpened. She held the sword backhand and turned it upward. The whole sword body immediately turned into a rotating afterimage, breaking upward in the shape of a cone. Suishing, the sixth move, break. In an instant, a violent gust of wind blew in the field, and Su Li's figure was also swept in. She couldn't sense it clearly. The existence in the darkness stared at the two parties that were about to collide and smiled. Even in such a situation, he still wanted to comprehend a trace of sword intent and chose to face the killing move head-on. He was truly foolish to the extreme. No matter how good his talent was, it would still be a waste. It turned around and gradually disappeared into the depths of the void. It was not even prepared to watch the ending. It would be strange if he didn't die after forcefully fighting to the death in that exhausted state. Just then, boom! A strong wind pressure suddenly spread out, and in the blink of an eye, the net of swords was torn to shreds. The middle-aged man was also torn to shreds, and the pieces of his corpse even splashed to the feet of the incorporeal being. She won. The being in the void was shocked. He suddenly turned around and looked at the eighth stone step, just in time to see Ziyen fall from the sky, his clothes in tatters and his body covered in blood. Just like the previous two steps, he fell on the stone step and fainted from his heavy injuries. How did you win? The existence in the nothingness looked terrible, and he felt thirsty. He thought that Su Li would die, so he didn't watch the battle carefully. Luck? Or, this woman has been hiding her true strength all along. He muttered to himself, and then he growled, impossible. Even practitioners in Yuanying realm may not be able to pass such a test, let alone practitioners in Zhuji realm. I don't believe it. He widened his eyes and stared at Su Li, who was lying motionless on the stone step. He didn't miss the slightest detail. In the shock and absent-mindedness, he forgot to continue to lie about the healing time. He didn't realize it until Su Li woke up. At this time, more than 60 hours had passed. You did a good job. It's not easy to come here. The healing time of the first step is only 60 hours, and you have spent 30 hours. 10 hours later, go to the ninth step. Ignoring the severe pain, Su Li propped up her body with her arms and barely sat up. Her tone was full of suppressed anger. 10 hours? Why don't you just ask me to die? Seeing that she finally showed her emotions, the being in the dark subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. This time, she was really at her limit. It was hateful that he had been hiding his true strength and deceiving her before. Fortunately, there was still a long way to go. Even if she didn't die on the ninth step, she definitely couldn't survive the test of the 10th step. There would be no accident. Thinking of this, he calmed down and continued to disguise his deep voice. He snorted coldly, I have given you a chance. You can't go back on your words when you come here. You. Su Li's blood-stained face was full of anger. She said with hatred, I now suspect that this star path was deliberately set by a destructive predecessor to kill the younger generation. I want to invite the arbitration of the star path. The being in the nothingness changed his expression slightly. Then he remembered that Su Li was only in Zhuji realm, and her soul body couldn't reach the perfect realm of Tianhun. The arbitration couldn't see through her. What was there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, he laughed and said confidently, you know the arbitration of the star path. Well, geniuses are always proud. Since you don't want to admit that you are too weak, you can invite the arbitration if you want. I won't stop you. Su Li's expression kept changing. She seemed to be struggling. After a while, she didn't make other moves. Instead, she seized the time to meditate and recover from her injury. Seeing this scene, the being in the nothingness smiled even more. You can't keep calm. That's a good thing. You are more likely to die if your state of mind is unstable. Let's see how long you can hold on. Su Li, who was sitting cross-legged on the stone step, looked pale. It was hard to tell whether she was angry or injured. She closed her eyes tightly, but her heart was calm, which was the opposite of the impetuous expression she showed. Her injury looked more serious. The white bones of her arms were full of cracks, as if they were porcelain that would fall apart. But Su Li knew that her real injury was much lighter than that on the previous step. After coming out of the illusion of the test, she didn't faint at all. Instead, she had been activating the Ghost Valley meditation direction to recover from her injury. She stayed for more than 10 hours while the being in the nothingness didn't respond. If she didn't guess it, the voice in the dark just now would only give her 40 hours to heal. It's only the 9th step. I haven't figured out how long it can affect the star path. My injury and pneuma haven't fully recovered. It's not easy to fall out with it. But, if it goes on like this, even a fool will know that I am pretending. When 10 hours passed, Su Li opened her eyes, and her eyes flickered. Falling out with it would happen sooner or later. From now on, get less injured. She took a step forward and stepped into the 9th step. Another fierce battle began on the high platform. But the being in the nothingness saw Su Li's desperate appearance and felt that something was wrong. How could she still have strength? Wasn't she seriously injured to the point that her arms were almost broken? How could she still hold the sword? The fighting puppet didn't feel pain. Didn't she feel pain? With more and more doubts and a more and more ominous premonition, the battle on the 9th step lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. It ended with Su Li cutting off one of her arms and piercing the puppet's head. Sure enough, she survived again. It stared at Su Li, whose arms and legs were separated on the 9th step, and suddenly felt a chill in its heart. What kind of monster did it provoke? There was even a faint regret in its heart, and it wanted to retreat. But at this point, neither it nor Su Li had a way out. It's the 10th step. She will definitely die. It muttered to itself, and its words were full of self-confidence that it didn't even realize. 40 hours, the 10th step. Su Li opened her eyes, and a cold voice immediately sounded in her ears. This voice was less lively than before, and more mechanical. It's not that person. He begins to doubt. Su Li was thoughtful. She picked up the right arm that was deliberately broken on the ground and reconnected it. She let it dangle on the side of her body, and closed her eyes to continue healing. Although it was very unreasonable that the healing time was only increased by 10 hours, she didn't pretend to be angry as before. Since they had a tacit understanding, some things were not necessary. There are different levels of arbitration. Just the gift of the star path won't have much influence on him. If I don't force him to make a big mistake, I will definitely die after the arbitration leaves. While healing, Su Li secretly pondered. Even if that person can affect the test of the star path, it will not be too much. Otherwise, if he directly promoted the strength of the puppet to Huashan realm or even higher, I would have been dead long ago. But it is also possible that he is not willing to take risks to deal with me. After all, for him, I am just an inconspicuous one among thousands of practitioners on the star path, and it is not worth it. But if I go to the last few steps, I may not. Su Li's eyes slightly sank, and she silently calculated for a moment in her heart. Then she was silent, and her mind was as calm as a lake without waves. When the hour was up, Su Li silently stepped on the 10th step. The 9th step to the 10th step was indeed a watershed. The purple sword light in the middle-aged puppet's hand was so dense that it was almost black. Every sword strike would leave a deep mark on the high platform. Su Li's situation was even more difficult. Every time she dodged and fought back, she almost brushed the edge of the sword edge, leaving crisscross scars, but every time the existence in the dark felt that she was about to be cut by the puppet's sword, Suli would miraculously survive. No matter how badly she was injured, no matter how much he shortened the healing time, Suli could continue to stand up and continue the next battle. The 11th step, the 12th step, every step was stained with blood. Suli didn't know how many times she had bled. From the 10th step, she didn't say a word, but just fought tirelessly. The sword intent imprinted in her heart became clearer and clearer. Until the end of the 16th step, Suli fell out of the illusion. When she was about to continue to heal, she finally heard the familiar but no longer vigorous voice. Enough. Suli was slightly stunned. Looking at the middle-aged man who appeared in the nothingness, the face of gnashing teeth gradually became clear. She sneered. Under the middle-aged man's angry look, she laughed hoarsely and said, "The 16th step, you finally can't help it? You are more tolerant than I thought." As soon as these words came out, the middle-aged man's face was completely gloomy. Chapter 441. The middle-aged man in a purple robe landed on the stone steps. He looked dignified and beardless, but there was a little stubble on his face. There seemed to be smoke in his sharp eyes. Suli opened her eyes and glanced at the ground. This man had no feet. Like Black Lotus, he was a spirit. "Have you found out that I lied to you?" The middle-aged man said in a sharp tone, which did not match his face. It was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman, when, as soon as the words came out, there was an invisible pressure spreading on the stone platform. At this moment, Suli had an illusion that she would be unpardonable if she didn't answer. In less than half a breath, many thoughts flashed through Suli's mind. Finally, she struggled slightly and said unwillingly, "There is no gift of the star path on the 5th stone step." Just because of this? The expression of the middle-aged man in a purple robe was stagnant, and a trace of regret flashed through his eyes. If he had known this, he wouldn't have done something so early. Maybe he would have given the gift of the star path at that time and let the woman recover from her injury. Then she would have no worries and die in the challenge carelessly. But now it was too late. He still held a glimmer of luck and didn't realize it until before the 17th step. How ridiculous it was. Looking at Suli, who was struggling fiercely, he knew that the shock wouldn't last long. The rich purple-black light in his hand slowly condensed into a purple light sword. A breath that made Suli's heart beat fast spread out. Holding the light sword, the middle-aged man in a purple robe showed hesitation in his eyes. He didn't want to do it himself. It didn't matter if the consciousness in the test of the star path secretly played tricks and killed 1 or 2 juniors. But if he did it himself, he was likely to be discovered. At that time, he would definitely be deprived of the right to stay here, and even be exiled to the abyss of fallen spirits. At the thought of the abyss of fallen spirits, the middle-aged man in a purple robe was deeply afraid. Finally, the purple light sword in his hand dissipated, and he said coldly, "After 100 hours, go to the 17th step. If you can really finish the star path, I will give you part of the inheritance." He didn't dare to do it after all. After leaving this sentence, his figure disappeared instantly. Coincidentally, Suli was also fully awake at this time. She looked dignified, as if she was considering the truth of that sentence. In his heart, he felt that it was a waste and dissipated the seal to invite the star path judge. She wasn't intimidated at all. With her soul, even if she hadn't undergone that transformation, she definitely wouldn't be affected by the purple-robed middle-aged man, let alone now. As for the purple-robed middle-aged man's words, she would be courting death if she believed him. 2 more levels, Suli took a deep breath and sat down to heal. Time passed by. A few days later, there were only a few breaths left before the time limit of 100 hours. Suli opened her eyes and thought for a moment. Finally, she chose to stand up and step on the 17th step. The scene on the high platform reappeared. This time, Su Li saw the face of the puppet clearly. It was the same as the face of the middle-aged man in the purple robe. The puppet stood silently in the field with a long sword in his hand, waiting for the arrival of his opponent. Su Li's eyes were clear. She didn't even look at the weapon rack. The same 3-foot Qingfeng sword flew out by itself and was caught in her hand. Then she said softly with a smile, "Let's start." Schwa! Schwa! The two figures instantly turned into shadows and filled the whole high platform. In the dark, the purple-robed spiritual body frowned and looked at the fierce battle on the high platform. He felt that something had changed in Su Li, but he couldn't tell the specifics. That thing must not be taken away. Just now, I have let her relax her vigilance with words and killed her instantly. In this way, the arbitration won't trouble me. With this thought in mind, the purple-robed spiritual body stared at Su Li's movements closely. After a dozen battles in succession, Su Li's combat experience improved rapidly, and her combat power was enhanced. But it also made him see clearly that there were no more than 6 movements in the swordsmanship that Su Li used. The most powerful move was a rotational swordsmanship that moved from the bottom to the top. He had seen it more than 10 times. If this woman dared to use this move, he had absolute confidence that he would be able to find an opening and give her a fatal blow. "Junior, you can only blame yourself for blocking my cultivation path. You deserve to die." The middle-aged man in a purple robe showed a ferocious look on his face, and the small purple sword in his hand condensed again. At the moment when the small purple sword condensed, Su Li suddenly shouted, and the long sword in her hand turned into a rotating sword shadow and flew to the puppet. "Now!" The eyes of the purple-robed spiritual body were full of ferocity. The small purple sword in his hand instantly drilled into the nothingness, and the next moment, it appeared at the back of Su Li's head without warning. He stared at Su Li's back, and his face showed a determined grin. At this moment, he suddenly saw Su Li turn around, and the square tripod-shaped gesture in her hand quickly enlarged. In his horrified eyes, a clear shout resounded through the nothingness. "Arbitration of the star path, please." As soon as the voice fell, everything in the space was still, and a white figure slowly condensed, together with the small sword shining with strong purple light. How could it be? She had seen through me. The purple-robed spiritual body roared in his heart. He stared at the small purple sword with red eyes. "Come back. Come back." But no matter how crazily he urged, the small sword seemed to be stuck in a swamp, and it didn't move at all. The figure in the white light gradually became clear. There was despair in the eyes of the purple-robed spiritual body. He suddenly turned to look at Su Li, and his eyes were full of killing intent. "Junior, I am in such a situation today because of you. Give me your life." Su Li's scalp was numb, and she was about to step back, but a figure was faster than her. In the blink of an eye, the purple-robed spiritual body couldn't move. Su Li was stunned for a moment, and turned to look at the place where the white light condensed, but there was no figure. At the same time, a cold snort came from the mouth of the white figure. Openly murder practitioners who enter the Star Path test, privately suppress the gift of the Star Path, and increase the difficulty of the test by more than 2 realms. All kinds of crimes are outrageous. If I didn't come in person, I don't know how many talents you will continue to kill. I can't let you live. Go away. As soon as the voice fell, a white light poured into the spiritual body. The purple-robed spiritual body, who was stepped on, let out a chilling scream, and struggled and howled wildly. "You can talk, the arbitration of natural soul. How is it possible? My luck can't be so bad. She is just in Juji realm. How can she reach the perfect natural soul? I can't accept it." As the last sentence was said, the white light had completely penetrated into the spiritual body, and a black flame was ignited. In the blink of an eye, the purple-robed spiritual body was burned into nothingness, leaving only ashes floating in the starry sky. At the same time, the purple flying sword fixed in front of Su Li's face also slowly dissipated, and the crisis faded. Su Li watched this scene quietly. Looking at the decisive white figure, she couldn't help thinking. What kind of place was the star path? When she came for the first time, she thought it was just a space generated by a cultivation realm. But the appearance of the Sueyu tactics and the laughter told her that it was not the case. Now, the arbitration of star path came at her summon. She felt that the white figure was a living person. When she was taking the test in this space, would there be someone outside watching her walk to the end step by step? All kinds of doubts emerged from the bottom of her heart. At this time, the white figure turned around. Su couldn't see his face clearly in the dense white light, but she still saw that he seemed to smile. Very good, Junior. When you pass the third star path, you may have a chance to enter the Star Hall. Come on. This time, you have encountered unfair treatment in the star path. According to the rules of the Star Hall, I will not only give you all the benefits of the star path, but also give you some compensation. What do you want? Star Hall. Su looked at the white figure. What is the Star Hall? The white figure smiled. You will know it later. Now tell me, what kind of compensation do you want? Of course, if you want me to promote your cultivation to Yuanying realm immediately, don't think about it. Su thought silently for a moment, raised her head and asked, what is sword intent? The white figure looked at Su in surprise. Is this the compensation you want? Su nodded. The white figure laughed and shook his head. You really don't know how to do business. But since it is your request, I will show you my sword intent. How much you can comprehend depends on yourself. Then, the white figure didn't wait for Su response. A white light shot out from his fingers, leaving a sword mark that was not deep on the stone step. This sword mark can exist for 3 days. Whether you can comprehend anything from it depends on yourself. To put it bluntly, the sword intent is nothing more than obsession. Remember it. Before the voice died away, the white figure dissipated. He came and went in a hurry, as if he had never appeared. Su squatted down and looked at the sword mark on the ground. She seemed to understand something and muttered to herself, obsession. At this moment, it seemed that something began to sprout in the depths of her heart. 3 days passed quickly, but Su seemed to be immersed in the sword mark. She was still staring at the stone step that had disappeared. She didn't know how long had passed. Finally, when her injuries were almost healed by self-healing, she finally woke up and stood up with a normal look. At this time, a mechanical voice sounded in the nothingness. Do you accept the gift of the Chuangxing path now? Su eyes flashed. She looked at the 18th stone step with burning eyes and said lightly, no need. After I pass the 18th step, you can pour all of it into me. On the 18th step, the picture changed. Su fell on the high platform and saw the middle-aged man opposite her. She raised the long sword and attacked without saying anything. She turned her wrist and the sword move was formed automatically. This move was not the 6th move, and there was no cyan light flashing on the sword. The first move of Cuixing, collapse. Su spoke softly, and the black light flashed in her eyes again. For the first time, the sword was plated with a layer of black light that was very similar to the purple light. The puppet's dull face collided with the sword. Bang! It was like 2 wooden swords colliding together. Su was stunned. The opponent's attack was much weaker than she imagined, even weaker than the first step. It shouldn't be. What a young man. You dare to test your sword on me here. Do you want to die? At this time, the puppet's dull face became lively. He said with a smile, I haven't seen such an interesting little guy for a long time. How about we practice? Chapter 442. Su eyes flashed, and she said, Are you, a living person? The middle-aged puppet smiled and shook his head. I'm just a sub-awareness stored in the puppet's body. Before that, Su hesitated to speak. The middle-aged puppet said slowly, That's your fate, and I won't stop you. But since you can break through, it shows that you are tough enough to inherit my mantle. If not, I won't show up. Su Li was silent for a moment, and said coldly, how do you know that I will accept your mantle? Ha 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 ha, the middle-aged man laughed, I won't force you. If you don't want to, just refuse. But I can see that you are interested in the lineage of sword. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she smiled, Senior, you are right. Then, please enlighten me. The middle-aged man nodded gently with a gentle smile on his face. Attack me with the sword you comprehended. Su Li's eyes narrowed, and the long sword in her hand immediately turned into lightning. A touch of faint black thought lingered around her. Clang! 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 The crisp collision of the two swords sounded continuously, mixed with the gentle teaching of the middle-aged man. I don't know where your soul has been. It has been transformed in advance, and it has reached the perfect realm of the nature soul. This realm can affect the reality, but it is not good for you to comprehend the intent of sword. Just now, the arbitrator of nature's soul said that the sword is the obsession. You have comprehended it, but it is wrong. The obsession is not the mind. Su Li's sword stopped, and the black light in her eyes quickly faded. The middle-aged man showed a gratified expression, why do you hold the sword? What I want is not your simple thought, but your thought of using the sword. Do you understand? No. Su Li gritted her teeth, and the sword in her hand attacked tirelessly, but was repeatedly blocked by the middle-aged puppet. After dispersing the thought of nature's soul, she tasted the feeling of blankness in her mind again. Blankness again, and slowly, she heard many voices in the dark. Li, are you willing to be my wife? Li, no matter whether you like me or not, I'm determined to follow you. Master, your life ring has been broken. I'm sorry. Is it worth it to trade your life for your child's future? Fake, the whole world is fake. Senior sister, you're just a tool that can be discarded after being used. Do you really think anyone will like you? The heavenly Tao would never allow such a person to be born naturally. Therefore, from the moment you were born, you were deliberately arranged by someone. Until the heavens were angry and the people resented you, you died a horrible death. You won't have a good ending. Ah! In the calm sky, an enraged cry of despair suddenly resounded, and it was like a cuckoo crying blood and filled the sky with sorrow. The ordinary longsword was instantly coated with a layer of black flames. It was filled with a destructive aura as it slashed towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed, and he didn't dare to conserve his strength any longer. A purple light quickly condensed on his sword, and he barely managed to block this sword. However, the puppet was caught by a trace of black flame, and it instantly started burning. The middle-aged man's face changed again and again. He had to give up his physical body and retreat to the nothingness, watching Su Li madly wielding her sword alone on the high platform. AO sword skills, Suishing, Suiyu tactics, and other high-level swordsmanship mixed together, rippling in the void. This is Destruction Sword Essence. The middle-aged man's sub-awareness hidden in the nothingness saw this scene, and his face showed horror. How could it be? Destruction. What kind of despair is hidden in this woman's heart, and she even wants to destroy everything? The middle-aged man's face was grave, and he began to realize the seriousness of the matter. If a person who understood such a sword essence was not in the right state of mind, what kind of disaster would it bring to the cultivation circle? What kind of evildoer have I attracted? I didn't expect that I would commit such a sin after my death. It's God's will. The middle-aged man was full of bitterness. He was just a sub-awareness, and he couldn't affect the operation of the star path. A few days later, Su Li's pneuma, genuine energy, and physical strength were all exhausted. She could only lie on the high platform and gasp. Her blood-stained clothes were soaked with sweat, and she looked like a pawn who had just survived from the battlefield. The middle-aged man's sub-awareness slowly approached. Looking at Su Li, who had lost her destructive power, he sighed softly. After a few breaths, Su Li's physical strength recovered a little, and she got up from the ground. After a moment of silence, She deeply bowed to the middle-aged man. Seeing this, the middle-aged man sighed more heavily. You can go. I won't give you my mantle. The skills you have learned are too messy. And every one of them can set off a reign of terror in the eyes of the world. If my inheritance falls into your hands, it is likely that it will disappear in the world soon. Su Li reluctantly showed a smile and said calmly, I understand. Seeing the smile on her face, the middle-aged man was slightly stunned. You understand what? I know what you are worried about, but those are things of a long time ago. Now I just want to find out the truth. It would be best if I don't kill. But if someone stops me, I can't do anything. Su Li smiled gently, as if she was talking about something that had nothing to do with her. The middle-aged man was silent again. He had cultivated for tens of thousands of years before his death, and he had seen many people and encountered many things, but he had never seen a woman as strange as Su Li. She clearly had resentment in her heart, and she could even understand the destruction sword essence, but she could still keep a clear mind. Such a person, the middle-aged man glanced at his transparent hands and suddenly laughed freely. I'm a man in the grave, and I don't care about the righteousness of the world. Haven't I suffered enough in my life? As he spoke, his expression turned serious. Little girl, what you've learned are the best mental cultivation methods and sword techniques in the world. Coupled with your sword intent, you're invincible among those of the same level, and you can even kill those of a higher level. But when I look at what you've learned, I find that you're still lacking something. Su Li nodded and was not surprised. I lack a killing move. I understand. Ho ho, the middle-aged man smiled and took out a transparent bead from his chest. With your intelligence, you must have thought of it long ago. I will give you my inheritance. You can use it yourself or give it to someone you like. It's up to you. But there is a sword move that is not in the inheritance, and it can only be taught by me. Su Li raised her eyebrows. A killing move? The middle-aged man laughed. Of course, and it's quite powerful. An hour later, the shadow of the middle-aged man dissipated and turned into specks of starlight that melted into the nothingness. Su Li watched this scene quietly, and then she bowed and said softly, Goodbye, Senior. As the starlight completely melted into the nothingness, Su Li's slightly warm face became cold again, and she said slowly, I have passed the 18th step of Star Path. Now I ask for the gift of Star Path to be infused to break through to Jindan realm. As soon as she said this, a cold voice sounded in the nothingness. As you wish. Whoosh, the stone steps that had disappeared emerged one by one, and a strange luster gushed out from the 5th step. After leaving the stone steps, it condensed into a huge ball in the nothingness. After a pause, it suddenly rushed to Su Li and wrapped her whole body in it, turning her into a transparent cocoon. Su Li slowly closed her eyes like an old monk meditating, and began to absorb the pure power in it with ease and concentration. Shortly after she meditated, a white light flashed and stared at the cocoon with burning eyes. It turned out to be the arbitration of natural soul. Old sword, you found yourself a pretty good successor. Su Li's absorption lasted for several years. As time went by, the transparent cocoon gradually shrunk, and finally only a layer of skin was left. At a certain moment, Su Li suddenly opened her eyes and counted with her fingers. She found that she had stayed here for 10 years. It's time to go out. Su Li calmly looked at the star gate at the end of Star Path, and looked at the round Jindan in the center of her pubic region. Then she slipped into the star gate and disappeared without hesitation. In the core of the tea plant, Black Lotus was still cursing. The reincarnation mirror looked sick and floated in the nothingness. No one knew what had happened during this time. All of a sudden, a star gate was constructed, and Su Li, who looked like a beggar, walked out of it in ragged clothes and hair. Swish! 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 Black Lotus ring, reincarnation mirror, nightmare, and all the other treasures returned in an instant. Black Lotus was stunned when he saw Su Li, and then he seemed to see a ghost. Su Li, you are back. Su Li frowned slightly and asked, How long has it been? It's only been an hour. Black Lotus shouted, an hour. My master, what did you do on the star path? You set a record for the shortest time to get out of the star path. Did the master of the star path look down on you and kick you out directly? That shouldn't be the case. I have never heard of anyone who failed in the star path and came out alive. Su Li stopped listening to Black Lotus's chatter and was slightly surprised. 10 years, in an hour. The time conversion this time was even more exaggerated than last time. But except for the rebellious spiritual body, everything else was normal. Is it because I invited the arbitration of nature's soul? Su Li couldn't understand why there were accidents every time on her star path. Fortunately, no matter how difficult the process was, she came out successfully. Thinking of this, Su Li turned over her palm, and a transparent light ball appeared in her palm. Before Black Lotus could see what it was, she put it away. Little Su Li, tell me what you encountered on the star path. I was chased all the way to the 17th step and almost died there. Finally, I invited the arbitration of nature's soul to survive. Tell me the truth. After playing with Black Lotus for a while, Su Li's heart seemed to be less heavy. After taking back the Tsang Lei's cave, she walked out of the core main gate of the tea plant. She already knew some ways to use the nature's soul, so she was not as cautious as before. According to the words of Senior Sword, the perfect nature's soul was extremely rare even in Huashan realm. In Yushu's sect, if she wanted to meet someone in Huashan realm, she had to break into the forbidden area. Su Li, you came out so soon. On the tea peak, Black Lotus looked at the disciples who passed by Su Li without noticing, and his heart trembled. If they were exposed, it was unknown whether they could escape or not. Su Li was too bold. Su Li did not answer. She turned a corner on the mountain road, and a chill suddenly came to her face. Chapter 443. Tinkle, 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 the chain rubbed on the stone surface and made a harsh sound. A haggard woman came to them. She was wet and her clothes were dripping with water. It seemed that she had just been fished out of the river. Her hair was disheveled and she looked like a forbidden woman. Beside her, Fong Ling was holding her and walking slowly. These two people, Black Lotus made a sound in the awareness sea. Su Li narrowed her eyes. Mei Ruhan and Fong Ling were all acquaintances. She watched them silently and let them get close to each other. Then, they passed each other. Senior Sister Apprentice, you haven't seen the sun for many years. It's sunny today and the weather is just nice. Master ordered me to take you to tidy up your appearance. Senior Sister Apprentice, you should cherish this opportunity. Fong Ling whispered softly on one side. Many female disciples dressed as maids followed her all the way, holding bright red clothes and phoenix coronets in their hands. Su Li's eyes flickered slightly. She turned around and followed the last maid. She blended into the team like a transparent person. After a while, they came to a magnificent hall. Su Li looked up at the plaque of the palace, which read, Lingyu Hall. She slightly twitched the corner of her mouth. On the Mount of Holy Girl, this palace used to be called Linli Hall. As the maids walked into the hall, a cold pneuma came to Su Li, which vaguely made her feel familiar. Fong Ling had helped the haggard woman to sit down in front of the dressing table. The maids stood around them. This palace was originally Senior Sister's. If Senior Sister hadn't chosen this path back then, Fong Ling nagged. Before she finished, Mei Ruhan, who had been like a zombie, finally said hoarsely, enough. Fong Ling was not angry. She just waved her hand and said, put down everything. You go out first. I will personally help you bathe and change clothes. The leader of the group of maids hesitated a little. Then she put down the tray in her hand and left with all the maids. After everyone left, the smile on Fong Ling's face disappeared. She waved her hand to set a soundproof boundary, but did not see that Su Li was sitting beside the dresser and watching them from beginning to end. Senior Sister, this is your last chance. Brother Luo's identity will be exposed very soon. If you don't grab hold of it, you can only stay in the underground ice prison for the rest of your life. Brother Luo's painstaking efforts will be wasted. Mei Ruhan stared blankly at the haggard face in the mirror and said coldly, how many benefits did you receive from Luo Yichen? Fang Ling was slightly stunned. Tears gradually appeared in her eyes. She bit her lips and held back her tears. Senior sister, it has been 1,000 years. Why do you still take it to heart? I know that you must care about Brother Luo and everyone in the Linli building, right? Mei Ruhan smiled sadly and said, the Linli building. I am not me, and he is not him. The only real Su Li was killed by me. Why should I take it to heart? Aren't you still calling me senior sister? Let me ask you, which Fang Ling are you? Which one? Fang Ling held her breath and was full of bitterness. After a long time, she took a deep breath and said softly, I don't know, but I know that the senior sister apprentice in Qingshui Circle has died. You are pure Mei Ruhan. Why do you continue to feel guilty for that evil thought? Now, you have to live. If you continue to stay in the ice prison, you can't hold on for a long time. Fang Ling wiped her tears and said, that's all. Senior sister apprentice, think about it. Then she turned and left the palace, leaving Mei Ruhan sitting alone in front of the dresser and lost in thought. At this moment, a light flashed in front of the dresser and Su Li's figure appeared. In order to let Mei Ruhan recognize her, she even used all spirits tactics to change her face into the appearance of her previous life. Mei Ruhan was not surprised to see her at all. She just muttered with a smile, I think too much, but I don't see any benefits. But I often see hallucinations. Tell me, what do you hate me for this time? Hate you? Su Li said softly and seriously, what do I hate you for? Mei Ruhan's eyes showed self-mockery, this time I changed the trick. Is it your turn to ask me? Then let me tell you, you hate me for destroying your life ring. I cut off your cultivation path. Every time you appear, you bleed from your 7 apertures. You can't wait to eat my flesh and blood, immediately turn into ashes, and never be reincarnated. Speaking of this, Mei Ruhan suddenly opened her hands and laughed hoarsely, come on. My life is here. Li, take it. Whether it's a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, I'm willing to do it. It's all my sins. Fang Ling stood in front of the hall and listened to the voice coming from the hall. Her eyes flickered, but there were no tears. Beside her, the leading maid stared at her without anyone noticing. From time to time, she could hear the whispers of the other maids. The previous saintess has gone crazy again. She's talking to herself, crying and laughing. How many times has it been? Just get used to it. I heard that the former holy girl married a good family. I really envy her. Silence. The leading maid's voice was a little louder and suppressed all the whispers. Then she bowed to Fang Ling respectfully and retreated with all the maids to a farther place. In the hall, Su Li stared at Mei Ruhan without blinking. Until Mei Ruhan felt a little strange, she suddenly chuckled, Ruhan, you are wrong. I don't hate you. Mei Ruhan trembled all over and looked at Su Li incredulously. Her lips trembled and she opened her mouth several times, but she couldn't make a sound. Finally, she suddenly thought of something and suddenly sat up straight. She slowly stretched out her cold hands and wanted to touch Su Li. But Su Li dodged and let it go. Plop, there was a sound of a stool overturning in the hall. Fang Ling still stayed outside and didn't go in. Mei Ruhan lay on the ground and propped herself up. She looked up at the familiar figure squatting in front of her and said in a hoarse voice, Are you real? What's real and what's fake is real. You have punished yourself for 1,000 years, but you still haven't figured it out. I can't figure it out either. Su Li's tone was gentle, just like in the Muyang girls' school. Every word she said was so calm and contained a convincing force. Mei Ruhan's eyes were full of tears. She couldn't speak anymore. Only a strong sense of guilt and remorse slowly spread in the air. I really don't blame you. From the moment your original soul dissipated, you were Mei Ruhan. I hate a lot. I hate Yushu's sect's selfishness. They used me as a tool and abandoned me after using me. I hate the behind-the-scenes manipulator who manipulated my life and made my death worthless. I hate the world even more. Why didn't they allow me to be born and turn a blind eye to me and let me bring disaster to the world? There is unwillingness and despair in my heart. But I still have a trace of warmth for you at the beginning. I am very happy to see you are still alive. Live well, Ruhan. With the last sentence, Su Li's figure dissipated as if she had never appeared. Mei Ruhan was in a daze. After a long time, she burst into tears. In the village under the Jiuzhou mountain range, Su Li looked relaxed. She held a stick of candied haws in her hand and shuttled through the busy night market. It seemed that she returned to the temple fair in the Desu town overnight. It was simple and pure. But Su Li knew that everything could not go back. Little Su Li, you didn't have to show up just now. Why? Don't tell me you really have good intentions towards them. They stayed by your side in the reincarnation mirror and were the ones who obtained the most luck. Su Li ate a stick of candied haws, and the sweet and sour taste spread in her mouth. She closed her eyes contentedly and said to herself with a smile, I haven't eaten it for a long time. It tastes good. Su Li, you haven't answered me yet. Black Lotus's face was full of anger, and he was on the verge of exploding. Was his sense of existence that low? Why was he always ignored by Su Li? Don't guess my mind in the future. It's very tiring. After that, Su Li quickly passed through a section of the downtown and ran to the street of the lantern show. Black Lotus looked tired and complained in his heart, you are more than 2,000 years old, but you still jump when walking. Do you really think that you are a girl? Of course, he never dared to say this in the open. A month later, Su Li returned to Ni sect, which only Hua Yan knew. It had been 2 months since Su Yang and Su Mu came to Ni sect. How did they do? Su Li threw a storage space to Hua Yan. The spiritual flowers and herbs found along the way look good. Try to put them into the Hualing pool, which is also good for your cultivation. Hua Yan rolled her eyes grumpily. You risked your life to go to Yushu sect, but you still remembered to bring flowers and herbs. You really want to die. Although her words were sharp, Hua Yan was happy in her heart. She answered seriously, the two of them are quite talented. They are almost on the same level as Yan Zai. Moreover, the three of them have been getting along with each other for the past 2 months. Yan Zai seems to know them. There are only a few holy sections. It is normal for holy sects disciples to communicate with each other. Su Li smiled and continued to ask, anything else? Hua Yan shook her head, nothing. Ni sect has Su Yuanhai's support, so it is very comfortable. Usually, the disciples of the sect will meet some people for the tasks of demons and monsters, but there is no other battle. But Su Yuanhai. Su Li raised her eyebrows, what's wrong with Su Yuanhai? He is not in a good situation recently. The 6th branch of Su family is competing with him for a spiritual stone mine, and they are fighting fiercely recently. The other branches of the Su family have all turned a blind eye to this and have not interfered. What about the 2nd branch? Su Li remembered Su Daiyin, who had a very good attitude to her before. Although the 2nd branch of Su family was still in the belly of the nightmare and did not go back, Su Daiyin would not fall out with them according to her character. Hua Yan sighed, she wants to intervene, but the 3rd branch, the 4th branch and the 5th branch work together to pressure her, so she can't intervene. I don't know what the head of the 6th branch of Su family likes about the spiritual stone mine. But its geographical location is a little special, and all the spiritual stones produced are low-grade spiritual stones. Logically, it should be even more disdainful. Special location? Su Li sensed something wrong and asked, where is the spiritual stone mine? Hua Yan took a deep breath and said solemnly, "It is the Black Stone Forest." What he hated most was talking to a blockhead, but he had no one else he could trust except Su Mu. Su Mu put away the carrier rune and looked up at Su Yang, who was close at hand. He said slowly, "Go back." Su Yang suddenly had a headache. After howling unwillingly for a while, he finally became listless and said weakly, "That's what you said. If I lose my life, I'll compensate you." Su Mu said expressionlessly. At the same time, Su Xianyun and the other two stood in the wilderness in a daze. They were all confused. After a long time, Su Zheng said with astonishment, "We escaped just like that?" Su Xianyun was awakened by his voice and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and find Su Jouzhou. She was not far from us at that time. She must be nearby." Su Wenbing sighed and asked Su Zheng and the other two to search separately. Not long after, they found Su Li in ragged clothes, who was unconscious in a bush. Su Li hadn't changed her clothes since she came out of the star path. Now it came in handy. The memories of Su Xianyun and the other two were naturally rewoven by her. They were completely different from the moment before they met Su Yang. In their eyes, it was Su Li who showed great power and led them to escape from the pursuit of the 100-person team. Then she forcibly broke through to Yuanying realm at a great cost and fought with the enemy. She broke the space and got a chance to negotiate. Finally, the four of them left the chaos zone through the vortex. All the memories were Su Li's personal experience. 80% of them were true. Su Xianyun and the other two accepted the memory immediately. Therefore, after the three of them woke up, they were anxious to find Su Li. It was a great favor to take them out of the chaos zone. After the three of them were busy for a while, Su Li finally woke up. She smiled with a pale face and propped herself up to sit up. Su Xianyun and the other two looked terrible. When they healed Su Li, they found that Su Li's pubic region was empty. Her meridians were broken, and her qi and blood were weak. She was even worse than ordinary mortals. The price of forcibly breaking through to Yuanying realm was losing all her cultivation. Su Xianyun took a deep breath and was full of guilt. He thought the so-called price was only serious injuries. He didn't expect that Su Jouzhou would. "Why do you all look like you're dead?" "I'm not dead yet." Su Li pretended to be angry. "Isn't it just losing all my cultivation? I'll just cultivate again." Su Xianyun and the other two nodded fiercely. "We'll go back now. Please ask the master to give you the best environment for recultivation." Su Li smiled indifferently, but there was a touch of worry in her eyes. She hesitated for a moment and said, I'd better not go." Su Xianyun was stunned, and then said solemnly, "Su Jouzhou, what are you thinking? My master is never an ungrateful person. Besides, you are a member of the second branch now. The master will definitely save you." "Yes, Su Jouzhou, you don't have to worry." Su Zheng patted his chest. "At worst, the three of us will ask the master to deduct all our cultivation resources for the next 100 years and give them to you for recultivation. If it doesn't work, just 1,000 years. Tears appeared in Su Li's eyes. She barely kept a smile and said in a hoarse voice, "Then, let's go back and have a look." "Okay. Let's set off now." Su Xianyun and Su Zheng breathed a sigh of relief, but Su Wenbing was silent. His life was saved by Su Jouzhou, so he would naturally give her the cultivation resources. However, he was much more sensitive than Su Xianyun and Su Zheng, and he had seen many things of the Su family. Even if the master was willing, would so many elders in the second branch agree with the master to invest a large amount of resources to save Su Jouzhou, who was already a waste? With a strong concern for Su Jouzhou, Su Xianyun carried Su Li on his back and set off. They probably thought that Su Li must be feeling uncomfortable, so no one mentioned business along the way. Instead, Su Zheng, who had always disliked Su Li, talked about the interesting things that happened in the second branch in daily life along the way, hoping to make Su Li smile. Su Li listened and watched quietly, and her heart was as calm as water. She didn't feel guilty for deceiving Su Xianyun and the other two. There might be selfishness in it, but it was not a good thing to know more about some things. If they had the strength of Yuanying realm, they would be able to resist the power of soul-searching, and it didn't matter if they knew some secrets of the Chaos Zone. But they didn't. The place designed by Su Li was not far from the mountain where the second branch of the Su family was located, so it only took half a day to arrive at the gate of the second branch of the Su family. Su Li had never been to the second branch, even in her previous life. Seeing the pavilions and terraces decorated with cyan robes, which were very elegant, she couldn't help but praise, "I didn't expect that the Su family also has such a beautiful place." Seeing that she finally spoke, Su Xianyun laughed and said, "The scenery of our second branch is famous for its good, unlike the nouveau riche in the main branch." Su Li nodded slightly. Her eyes flickered slightly, and she glanced at the mountain gate without a trace. After a few breaths, two young disciples of the Su family ran out. One of them was stunned at first when he saw Su Xianyun and the other two, and then became overjoyed. He turned back and shouted, "It's the first senior fellow apprentice. The first senior fellow apprentice is not dead. They are all back." This shout immediately caused the entire second branch of the Su family to boil. At the same time, in the forbidden adytum of the second branch, all the elders sat together. Su Daiyin sat at the head of the table and said nothing with a cold face. "Head, why do you continue to annoy the old ancestor? That is a major event related to the survival of the entire Qingshui circle. It's a pity that Xianyun and the others died, but their death is not worthless." Su Daiyin sneered and still said nothing. Seeing that his persuasion didn't work, the white-bearded elder sitting on the right with a smile said warmly, "Second branch head, don't be impatient. I came here from the main branch to tell you a piece of good news. It's not impossible to die in that place. Just a few days ago, the two hidden talents of our main branch, Su Yang and Su Mu, both came back alive from the Chaos Zone." As soon as this was said, everyone's face changed. Even Su Daiyin couldn't keep calm and asked, "Did the old ancestor take action?" The white-bearded elder shook his head with a smile. "Of course not. Those two juniors aren't the direct descendants of our ancestor. How could they have made a move? It was one of them who broke through to the nascent soul stage and caused a disturbance inside. The two sides didn't want the space to continue to be damaged, so they let them out." Hearing this, Su Daiyin was silent with bitterness in her heart. She knew her three apprentices very well. There was no sign of them breaking through the elixir realm. They were not even half a step to Yuanying realm. Unless there was a miracle, it was impossible for them to break through to Yuanying realm. She was silent, but the rest of the elders were relieved and echoed one after another, "That's great. I watched Su Xianyun and the other two grow up. They don't look like short-lived people. Maybe they can take advantage of this opportunity to break through to Yuanying realm and become the youngest elder of our second branch." "Yes, yes." Looking at the faces of the elders, Su Daiyin only felt disgusted and was about to speak. Suddenly, the door of the adytum was pushed open. A young elder who didn't participate in the meeting came to the table with a happy face and said quickly, "Head, great news. Su Xianyun and the other two are back." Su Daiyin was stunned for a moment. She suddenly stood up with her eyes shining, "Is it true?" "Of course, they have returned home and are recuperating in the back hall." Su Daiyin couldn't sit still immediately. She bowed to the white-bearded elder who was stunned and squinted with a smile, "Thank you for your kind words, elder. I have to go to see my apprentices. I have to go now." The white-bearded elder reacted quickly and returned the salute with a smile, "I understand that the head of the second branch cares about his apprentices. Go ahead." "Thank you." Su Daiyin hurried away without looking back. The white-bearded elder looked at the other elders of the second branch who were also full of joy, and his face darkened slightly. Even Su Dian's apprentices had broken through to Yuanying realm. The threat of the second branch to the main branch was getting greater and greater. I must report this to the old ancestor. Regardless of what the white-bearded elder thought, Su Dian hurried to the back hall and pushed open the door of the wing room. Before she had time to react, she saw Su Xianyun and the other two standing side by side and kneeling in front of her. Chapter 445. What are you doing? Seeing that they were not seriously injured, Su Dian felt relieved and asked. Master, please save Su Jojo. Su Jojo. Su Dian opened her beautiful eyes slightly and turned around. She finally saw Su Jojo meditating in the inner room. Compared with Su Xianyun and the other two who were neatly dressed, her clothes were so ragged that she could be described as a beggar. The pungent smell of blood made Su Dian frown. Master, Su Jojo saved all of us. While Su Xianyun was talking about the ins and outs, Su Dian had already walked to Su Jojo and felt Su Li's pulse. She frowned more tightly. Xianyun, why didn't you contact me before coming back? Su Dian's voice was slightly cold, and the temperature in the air seemed to drop a lot in an instant. Xianyun was stunned and immediately smiled bitterly. Master, our storage rooms were all lost in the chaos zone, so we couldn't contact you. Su Dian glanced at the empty fingers of the three and sighed softly. Many people in the second branch saw Su Jojo, who had lost all her cultivation. Sorry for the trouble. At this time, Su Li's eyelashes trembled and she opened her eyes. After seeing Su Dian, she was slightly frightened and was about to stand up to salute, but was stopped by Su Dian. You are seriously injured, so you don't have to salute. Su Li heard the words and showed gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, senior. Don't call me senior. Su Dian said seriously and stared at Su Li. Call me master. Su Li was slightly stunned and immediately smiled. She didn't misjudge her. What are you laughing at? Su Dian was puzzled and waved her hand to let Su Xianyun and the other two go out first. Then she set up a soundproof boundary and said in a deep voice, the second branch is not united. One branch is led by me, and the other branch is led by the first elder, Su Dingxian. If you were not seen by the second branch, it would be very easy for me to save you under the guise of rescuing Xianyun and the others with resources. But you went back to the second branch rashly. Su Li was silent. Of course, she knew the pros and cons, so she specially took the universe rings of Su Xianyun and the other two. Su Dian sighed slightly and said softly, I need a nominal master and disciple relationship to save you. If you don't want to take me as your master, I won't force you. Just pretend to call me master in front of outsiders. I recruited you into the second branch myself, and you saved Xianyun and the others. I should save you. Su Li showed a wry smile and said half-truthfully, thank you for your kindness, Jojo. It's just that I still have an unresolved dispute with my former master, so taking him as my master is a taboo for me. I know my own injuries. Why do you have to? From what you said, I'll take it that you've agreed to my proposal. Su Dian didn't listen to Su Li's explanation. She gently pushed away the messy bloody hair that covered Su Li's eyes and chuckled, go take a bath and change your clothes. You used to be a practitioner of Yuanying realm anyway. Don't make yourself so embarrassed. Remember to call me master in front of outsiders. As for your injuries, don't worry, I'll think of a way. Su Li watched Su Dian go away in a daze. At this moment, she had an illusion. Since her rebirth, no matter what she did, no matter what the process was, she could get a good result in the end. And her luck in meeting people seemed to be more than 100 times better than in her previous life. Mo Qin's gentle face flashed in Su Li's mind. Her eyes were slightly gloomy, and she muttered to herself, Master, in Yushu's sect, she didn't go to Elixir Mount to see her, although she knew that she could swagger into the familiar palace. But she didn't dare to. Soon after Su Dian left, two teams of maids came in with clothes and buckets to carefully help Suli take a bath and change her clothes. 4 hours later, Suli sat in front of the dressing table, wearing a purple gauze dress that was unique to Su Dian's direct disciple. Her hair was simply tied with a purple hairband, which was clean and refreshing. Suli was dressed in ordinary clothes, and her face even looked a little childish, but she had an indescribable profound temperament. Suli looked in the mirror and touched the lotus mark at the corner of her eyes with her fingers. She narrowed her eyes slightly. At this time, another old man in a black robe, who looked like a steward, came in from the door of the back hall. He bowed deeply to Suli and said respectfully, "Lord Jojo, your courtyard has been cleaned up. Will you go there now?" Suli turned her head and showed a gentle smile. "Thank you, steward." "Where are Su Xianyun and others?" The old man in a black robe was immediately flattered, and he couldn't help but speak with real respect. "Lord Xianyun and others are in their own courtyards, which are not far from your courtyard. Would you like to visit them? I can lead the way." Suli nodded gratefully. "Thank you, steward. May I know your name?" The old man in a black robe smiled bitterly and bowed. "You really don't deserve this. Just call me Old Su, lady." Suli waved her hand to dismiss the maids around her. She stood up and walked through the door, and said with a smile, "Elder Su, you don't have to do this. I am seriously injured, and now I am just an ordinary mortal. I don't deserve your courtesy." Hearing this, the eyes of the old man in a black robe changed instantly. He reacted quickly and led Suli out of the back hall. After a while, Suli saw the courtyard that the old man in a black robe mentioned. It was built on a separate small peak, covering an area of thousands of hectares. The whole hilltop was flattened and planted with all kinds of spiritual flowers and herbs. Many handymen could be seen working in the flower field. It was not so much a courtyard, but a manor with a lofty status. This thought flashed through Suli's mind, and her eyes flickered slightly. In this way, it could cause more dissatisfaction in the second branch. When Su Dingxia's branch lost its patience, it would be her chance. "Lady, that is the residence of Lord Xianyun." The old man in a black robe pointed to a vast manor on the peak not far away and asked, "Shall we go there now?" Suli gasped slightly, and looked a little tired. She waved her hand and said, "I am a little tired, so I don't want to bother you, Elder Su." The old man in a black robe smiled slightly. "What are you talking about, lady? Since you are here, I will leave now." "Yeah, take the lady inside to have a good rest." As he said, he winked at the maid beside him. The maid called "Ya," immediately responded and took Suli into the manor. After Suli disappeared from his sight, the smile on the old man's face disappeared instantly, and he left in a hurry. Soon, he came to the elder's yard and saw Su Dingxian unimpeded all the way. He said quickly, "First elder, the new disciple of the head of the branch has a good temperament, but her injury is a little strange. It is not as the head of the branch said that she could recover by consuming some resources. I think she seems to have lost all her cultivation." Su Dingxian leaned on the soft chair calmly, and a glimmer of light flashed in his turbid eyes. "Lost all her cultivation. It will consume a lot of resources to recultivate. Besides, according to Su Dian, this girl must have broken out a strong fighting power to save Su Xianyun and several juniors from the chaos zone. Her foundation must have been hurt, which caused her to lose all her cultivation." "Exactly." The old man in black lowered his eyebrows and followed Su Dingxian's words. "The most likely result of recultivating after the foundation is destroyed is that a lot of resources won't improve her cultivation. Su Jojo should thank the gods if she can recover to the level of an ordinary disciple." "Ho ho ho," Su Dingxian squinted and laughed. "The sect doesn't keep idle people. It is the iron rule set by the old ancestor. I was worried that I couldn't find a chance to make Su Dian make mistakes. It is really a case of wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, and finding her by chance. He looked up at the old man in black and said in a cold tone, "Go out and get your reward." The black-robed old man's face lit up with joy. He bowed and retreated. Su Dingxian pondered for a moment and summoned a kind-looking elder. After a few hours of secret talk, the kind-looking elder left the courtyard and returned to the mountain where Su Daiyin was through a secret passage. Head, the 12th elder is here to see you. Su Daiyin was sitting at the table and preparing the healing elixir for Su Li. Suddenly, she heard the summon outside the door. She calmly covered the paper on the table with other things and said loudly, "Come in." Not long after, the 12th elder with a kind face came into the room worriedly. After saluting, he whispered, "Head, I think the first elder is too quiet. Something is wrong." "Is it about Su Jojo?" "You don't have to worry about Su Jojo. It's not so easy for the old fox, Su Dingxian, to catch my weakness." Su Daiyin sneered and said in a relaxed tone when she raised her head, "You come at the right time. I asked you to inquire about the spiritual stone mine in the Black Stone Forest. How is it going?" The 12th elder didn't care that he didn't get any information out of Su Yuanhai. He answered obediently, "The people of the other branches have covered up the news. I don't know what the mystery of the low-level spiritual stone mine is. Head, since the people of the 3rd, 4th, and 6th branches are interested in it, why should we do it for Su Yuanhai, the 12th elder?" Su Daiyin raised her voice and looked at the kind-hearted elder fiercely. A sense of majesty naturally emanated from her. Cultivation is to fight against fate. It's impossible that you don't understand this truth. Just because the 3rd, 4th, and 6th branches are powerful, you have to retreat? Doesn't it mean that you won't fight for a lot of resources as long as someone is fighting for them? The 12th elder's expression changed slightly. He immediately lowered his head with anger in his eyes, but his tone was full of respect and fear as before. "Head, please calm down. I'm confused." Su Daiyin snorted coldly, "The 2nd branch doesn't keep idle people. Find out the details of the spiritual stone mine in the Black Stone Forest in 3 days. Do you understand?" Yes, head. I'll ask someone to speed up the progress." The 12th elder bowed and left the room. He didn't put away his exaggerated expression until he retreated to the big tactical matrix of the mountain. He spat with a sullen face and went down the mountain. In the study, Su Daiyin looked at the scene of the 12th elder leaving in the water mirror thoughtfully. "Daiyin, since you have long suspected that he is Su Dingxian's man, why did you ask him to investigate the matter in the Black Stone Forest? If he is hiding something from us," a kind-looking woman came in from the side room in a wheelchair and said helplessly. Sometimes, having such an outstanding daughter was also a kind of trouble. Chapter 446. "Mother, why are you here?" Seeing the woman, Su Daiyin's cold and serious expression immediately eased. She squatted down in front of the woman with a smile and said softly, "I can handle the family affairs. Mother, don't worry. Still hiding it from me?" The woman shook her head and stared at her. "Your uncle Guang has told me. Is Su Jojo really so important? It's not easy for you to secure the position of the head of the family. If Su Dingxian and others. I promised her, so I will do it." Su Daiyin said softly with a serious face, "Even if she didn't come to our 2nd branch, she saved Xian Yun and the other 2 people. I can't ignore her kindness. I am not a cold-blooded old monster of our family." The woman looked more helpless when she heard that. "How dare you say this? Mother, don't worry. I will handle it well." Su Daiyin gently squeezed the woman's hand and said softly, "Trust me." The woman's eyes also softened, and there seemed to be tears floating in her eyes. "Of course, I trust you. Even if you make a wrong decision, I will be by your side, Daiyin." The last sentence sounded in the woman's heart. The study, which was full of intrigue, was filled with a touch of warmth. Su Li came to the hall of the manor and dismissed all the maids who wanted to serve her. She sat on the bed alone and pondered. She had perfectly infiltrated the 2nd branch of the Su family and gained Su Daiyin's trust. The first step was extremely perfect, but she hadn't figured out how to carry out the second step, especially when the matter of the black stone forest was involved. With my current strength, although I don't know if I can defeat a practitioner of Huashan realm, it is absolutely not a problem for me to survive. Suli looked inside her pubic region and saw a golden elixir shining with strange light rotating slowly in the 18th grade black lotus. When one reached this realm, the elixir was divided into 3 levels, namely, 1 pattern, 2 patterns and 3 patterns. The more patterns on the surface of the elixir, the higher the potential and the greater the chance of breaking through to Huashan realm in the future. Of course, the 3 levels of combat power were also very different. If a practitioner with 1 pattern of Jindan elixir fought with a practitioner with 3 patterns of Jindan elixir of the same cultivation, he would definitely be defeated. Suli stared at the golden elixir in her pubic region, and a trace of distress flashed through her eyes. She didn't know whether it was because of the strange phenomenon brought by the body of evil ghost. Her Jindan was outside these 3 levels. The surface of the whole Jindan was covered with black lotuses, which almost dyed the whole Jindan black. If she didn't observe carefully, she couldn't see the layers of black lotuses at all. With such a phenomenon, it was impossible for her to estimate her own strength before she actually fought with a soul formation cultivator. The 18th grade Black Lotus Golden Elixir, Black Lotus Ring, and I even have a lotus mark on my face. Suli looked away from the pubic region, and her low and serious voice echoed in the small space around her. It seems that the ghost clan really likes the Black Lotus. In the next 2 days, Suli received practicing resources sent by Su Daiyin. They were all natural treasures that were excellent for recultivation and had a subtle healing effect on repairing the damaged foundation. Suli glanced at them and then put them aside. After the completion of the Chuangxing path, it was a matter of course for her to advance from Zhuji realm to Jindan realm. She had directly broken through to the middle stage of Jindan realm by condensing the gift of the star path to the extreme point in Jindan realm. If she wanted to reach the limit in Jindan realm, she needed a lot of resources. Even the resources in Song Lei's cave were not enough, not to mention the things sent by Su Daiyin. Oh my god, did Su Daiyin recognize your real body? Why is she so nice to you? Black Lotus chattered and put away the resources. These things were sent here to be used. Leaving them in the universe ring would leave a trace. Therefore, Suli had told him before that no matter what Su Daiyin sent, he should put them all into the Black Lotus ring. Just as Black Lotus put away all the things, there was a sudden sound of messy footsteps outside the hall, mixed with the maid's panicked voice. Master, something bad happened. Someone is coming to make trouble. Seeing the maid stumbling from outside the door, Suli narrowed her eyes slightly. She still remembered the maid's name. What's wrong? Hearing Suli calling her, suppressed the disgust in her heart and said with a face full of panic, "It's Lady Suhi. She suddenly broke into the manor just now. Master, you should hide quickly. She is about to fight in the hall." Suli was not moved by the words. She just looked at which made feel scared. She had thought that Suli, who had lost all her cultivation, would show a trace of surprise on her face no matter how calm she was. Unexpectedly, this woman had no reaction at all. "I want to escape," Suli sighed in a low voice. Seemed to feel it and looked back. She happened to see a cold-faced woman in red had appeared by the door of the hall. She stared at Suli with her cold eyes, as if she could freeze Suli into an ice sculpture with her gaze alone. Suddenly realized that she had resigned to her fate. "Who are you?" Suli asked calmly, but there was a trace of fear that couldn't be hidden in her eyes. Suhi noticed it. She curled her lips sarcastically and didn't hide the killing intent in her eyes. Her cold voice echoed in the hall, "Are you Su Jojo?" It turns out that the one who occupies my brother Songyue's courtyard is a bitch like you, who relies on men to get the position. Su Daiyin is getting worse and worse. She let a useless person live in the inpatient building. It seems that the head of the second branch should be changed. Su Dian was stunned. She was so arrogant that she let a disabled person live in the inpatient building. Su Li seemed to be angry out of shame and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense." What? Su He's almond-shaped eyes slightly glared, and a trace of sharp light shot out. She suppressed the second half of Su Li's words and sneered, "I give you 3 breaths to get out of here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. This is my courtyard." Su Li raised her voice and her face was full of anger. Su He's face was full of ridicule. "Your courtyard? Su Dian, I give her some face." According to the rules of the second branch of the Su family, all disciples can challenge the head of the courtyard and become the new head of the courtyard. Now, I challenge you. Do you dare to accept? You. Su Li was speechless. She clenched her hands tightly as if she was going to pinch her nails into her flesh. "Oh. I see." Su He revealed a look of sudden realization. She covered her mouth and chuckled, "I forgot that Su Jojo, who is famous in the head branch of the Su family and was personally accepted as a disciple by Su Dian, is now a good-for-nothing who is not even in Lianqi realm." Speaking of this, her eyes were cold. "Good-for-nothing. Why don't you get out? Do you really want me to throw you down the mountain before you're satisfied?" Before she finished her words, an angry male voice sounded from outside the door. "I'd like to see how you are going to do it." Hearing this voice, Su He, who was arrogant before, immediately changed her face and grabbed Su Li without saying a word. Su Li's face was gloomy, and she was shocked and angry at the same time. Right at this moment, a figure appeared between the two of them at lightning speed. Bang! Su He was kicked far away like a ball and didn't stop until she hit the wall of the palace. She covered her chest and looked at the big footprint on her chest. Her face was ugly and shocked, and she screamed, "Su Xianyun, you have become stronger again. How is it possible?" "Oh. Su He, you can't estimate the strength of our eldest senior fellow apprentice. He just climbed the crooked tree of Su Songyue. Do you really think that he is invincible and can bully anyone?" Another person leisurely walked out from the door and mocked him. Su Zheng. When Su He saw him, she was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. Her eyes were filled with extreme shame and deep fear. She didn't know what Su Zheng had done to her before. Su Xianyun didn't pay attention to their conversation. He just looked at Su Li, who had become silent since he came in. After a long time, he apologized, "I'm sorry, it's not your fault. It's my choice." Su Li's tone was free and easy with a trace of bitterness, which made Su Xianyun admire her even more. Finally, Su Wenbing also came from the door. He was silent as usual, but Su Li keenly felt that he was a little different. He seemed to be struggling with something. Taking a deep look at Su Wenbing, Su Li turned her eyes to Su He, who had been forced to the corner by Su Zheng. "Who is she?" Su Xianyun looked at Su He and said in a slightly cold tone, "There are all kinds of birds in a big forest. Her name is Su He. She doesn't have a strong background, but I don't know where she learned the skill of bed." Relying on that crooked way, she mingled with many male disciples in the second branch. Now she climbed the fourth elder's favorite lineal descendant and is extremely arrogant. Su Li's eyes slightly narrowed. "Which branch does the fourth elder belong to?" Su Xianyun showed a trace of embarrassment on his face. He hesitated for a moment and whispered, "She belongs to the master's branch." The master didn't know this would happen. It's not suitable for her to show up before the investigation is clear. You don't have to explain so much to me. Su Li smiled, "I can understand the master's difficulties, but don't you think there is something wrong with this girl? She can mingle with many male disciples, which proves that she is not stupid. But she came to me at this time. No matter what my final outcome is, her ending has been doomed." Su Xianyun didn't think much before. At this moment, when he heard Su Li's words, he suddenly broke into a cold sweat. Su He, a female disciple with no background, was involved in the conflict between factions. One could imagine her ending. Someone secretly instigated her, but she is not stupid. If the instigator's identity was not high enough, she would not seek death. Why would the master's branch of Su Songyue trouble Su Jojo? Was Su Songyue instigated by the first elder's branch, or? The more Su Xianyun thought about it, the more serious the situation became. He had a lot of people to tell Su Li, but now he had to leave with Su He in a hurry. Before leaving, Su Wenbing, who had been silent, wanted to speak several times, but he swallowed his words. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned to leave. Su Li sat quietly in the hall and looked at the empty gate, lost in thought. Who stood aside and witnessed everything, didn't dare to breathe, for fear that her identity would be discovered by Su Li and she would end up like Su He. Go out, I'm tired. With a sigh, Su Li turned and walked to the depths of the palace. Immediately breathed a sigh of relief, bowed her head and walked away quickly. When she got out of the palace, she found that her back was wet. I shouldn't have been involved in this mess. Er's face was pale, and she regretted it. But she felt more powerless. Born in such a family, she had no right to stay out of it. Chapter 447. After left, the whole hall returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. Su Li closed the stone door of the adytum and restrained all her expressions. She turned over her palm, and the carrier rune fell into her palm. The carrier rune flashed, and Su Yuanhai's voice sounded from it. Master, there is something strange about the spiritual stone mine in the Black Stone Forest. The people of the 6th branch are determined to get it. I was beaten back before I could see clearly what was in it. I don't know if it is an illusion, but I seem to smell a trace of demon energy. Su Li's eyes flashed. Demon? The legend of demons and ghosts could be traced back to the ancient times. Perhaps during the period when Black Lotus was still alive, the demon clan could still be seen frequently. But now, the demon clan in the entire cultivation world could be counted on one's fingers. Only in a few large domains could one still see their active figures. Such a large clan had suddenly disappeared, and no one knew where they had gone. There are demons in Jojo region. Su Li carefully recalled the peeping gaze in the depths of the Black Stone Forest. The coldness with a sense of ridicule in the world of mortals. If it was a demon clan, then the intelligence of this demon clan must not be lower than that of the human clan. As for the realm, the transformation of the demon clan is equivalent to the Huashan realm. Anyway, the mobs of the 6th branch can't deal with it. There is no need to worry. This thought flashed through Su Li's mind, and then she slowly calmed down. Su He had helped her to make a good start, and all she needed to do was to observe. The atmosphere in Su Dian's study was cold and silent. Su He knelt in front of the table with a pale face and lowered head. Her previous arrogance and disregard for Su Dian had completely disappeared. Su Dian squinted her eyes and tapped the table with her knuckles. There was a pressure in the air, and Su He felt as if she was strangled and almost suffocated. Su He, you are a smart person. You probably understand the current situation. If you don't tell the truth, let alone Su Songyue, even the elders behind him can't save you. Su He's body trembled. She bit her lips and wanted to say something several times, but she thought of something and swallowed the words in her throat. You don't want to say it? Su Dian smiled helplessly. I didn't expect that you have fallen in love with someone after so many years of being fickle. Since that's the case, you attacked this seat's disciple for no reason and almost caused a talented person to lose all possibility of recovery. I will punish you by sending you to the Poison King Valley to sweep for 10 years. Men. Hearing the words, Poison King Valley, Su Dian's expression changed greatly. She screamed in a sharp voice, Poison King Valley. Patriarch, you have no right to send me there. I want to see the Great Elder. You didn't. I don't have power. Su Dian still smiled, but her helplessness turned into sarcasm. Every family has its rules. You wantonly attacked Su Jojo and made a big mistake. Even if Su Dingxian knows about it, it will just waste some time to explain. I still have this power. Come on. Swoosh. Su Xianyun and Su Zheng appeared outside the door. The sunlight shone into the room through the crack of the door, making Suhi's face pale. Su Zheng casually walked to Suhi's side. He wanted to drag her out, but he found that she was lying on the ground like a pile of mud. It seems that you still want to live. Su Zheng grinned and whispered in Suhi's ear, don't forget your identity. In their eyes, you're just a chess piece that can be thrown away at will. Do you really think that anyone will come to save you? Suhi shuddered and finally woke up from the lie. Yes, at this time, she didn't see anyone come to save her, or even say a word for her. Take her away. Su Daiyin shouted softly. The two words were like a heavy hammer, completely smashing the last defense in Suhi's heart. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. Suhi broke down and cried loudly. She clutched the ground tightly. It's the fourth elder. The fourth elder promised that as long as I can drive Su Jojo out of the building, he will let me and senior brother Songyue officially become cultivation partners. Su Daiyin looked at Suhi's crying expressionlessly, but her heart slowly sank. This was the answer she didn't want to hear the most. But what she was afraid of happened. Master, Su Xianyun looked at Su Daiyin with distress. If he could, he really wanted to share some of the pressure for his master. But their strength was too weak. I'm fine. Su Daiyin waved her hand, and the gloominess on her face disappeared. She asked, how are the people at the foot of the mountain? The third junior fellow apprentice is stopping them. It seems that the first elder and the others don't want to fall out with each other immediately. They didn't expect that we would suddenly catch Suhi for questioning. Thanks to Su Jojo's reminder. Su Daiyin nodded, take Suhi to the community and keep a close eye on her. Don't let her die. Su Xianyun's heart sank, and then he nodded solemnly. I understand. At the foot of the mountain, Su Wenbing watched the elders under Su Dingxian's command fly away. His expression kept changing, with helplessness and bitterness flashing on his face from time to time. Wenbing. Su Xianyun's voice sounded not far behind him. Su Wenbing's expression immediately became clean. He turned around and nodded, senior fellow apprentice, they all left. They didn't do anything. Who came? It's the sixth elder and the eighth elder. Su Wenbing answered fluently, but there was an imperceptible pause in his tone when he mentioned the sixth elder. These two people are not powerful in the first elder's faction. It seems that they have given up on Suhi. But we still can't be careless. Su Xianyun analyzed in a low voice. He turned to look at Su Wenbing, who was silent as usual. He paused and suddenly said, Wenbing, are you hiding something from me and Ah Zheng? Su Wenbing's heart trembled, and he managed to keep calm. He forced a smile and said, no. Don't keep everything in your heart. You have been like this since you were a child. It's really worrisome. Su Xianyun noticed Su Wenbing's abnormality, but he didn't think much about it. He patted Su Wenbing's shoulder and said, we and the master are all your family. What can't you say to your family? If you really can't hold it, just tell us. Don't worry. No matter what it is, Ah Zheng and I are your senior fellow apprentices. Do you understand? I know. Su Wenbing's eyes were slightly red, and he lowered his voice. It seemed that there was a kind of emotion that was suppressed in his throat, and he didn't want to let it out. Su Xianyun thought that he was moved, and suddenly laughed, you are still as sentimental as before. Go back quickly. Don't delay your practice because of these trivial things. Okay. After Su Xianyun left, Su Wenbing stood alone on the stone path at the foot of the mountain, lost in thought. After a long time, he glanced at the direction of Su Daiyan's study with a complicated look and left silently. Shortly after he left, a light suddenly flashed in the open space where he had been standing, and a petite girl appeared. Su Li took a deep look at the direction where Su Wenbing left. She curled her lips and walked up the mountain. People came and went on the master peak. People passed by Su Li constantly, but no one could see her. Unimpeded, Su Li came to the door of Su Dian's study after half an hour. After waiting for a moment, the 12th elder came in a hurry. The moment he pushed the door open, she followed him in. The layout of Su Dian's study was simple and plain. If it weren't for a few spiritual stone lamps, it would be similar to the study of a secular family of scholars. Su Li liked this style very much. She walked around for a while, and then sat down on the rattan chair beside Su Dian's desk. She looked at the 12th elder with joy and said, "Head, I have news." Su Dian's expression remained unchanged. She knocked on the table with a crisp sound. "Tell me." "Here's the thing. I took the inner disciples to the Black Stone Forest and hid for several days. Finally, I heard that the 6th branch found demon crystals in the spiritual stone mine in the Black Stone Forest." As soon as the words came out, Su Dian's calm face suddenly changed. She couldn't help but confirm, "Demon crystals? Are you sure?" "It's absolutely true." The 12th elder looked excited. "Although I have never seen a demon, the breath emitted from the crystal is the legendary demon energy. It's exactly the same as what is recorded in the book. There is a fishy smell. The rarer something is, the greater its value." This sentence also applied in the cultivation circle. The demon clan had disappeared for tens of thousands of years, and the demon crystals produced in the human clan were very few and priceless. In the biggest auction held in Jiuzhou region hundreds of years ago, a thumb-sized demon crystal was sold at a frighteningly high price, and thousands of practitioners died because of it. Now, there was a demon crystal mine in Black Stone Forest. When it rains, it pours. Su Dian's face darkened. The first thing that came to her mind was not the preciousness of the demon crystals, but how to minimize the loss of the 2nd branch. As for Su Yuanhai, he might be destroyed in this bloody storm if he was not careful enough. This is beyond the control of our Su family. Are the heads of the 6th branch crazy? How dare they try to monopolize it? Su Dian's eyes showed anger. "I will go to the main branch immediately. This matter should be decided by the old ancestor himself." The 12th elder seemed to have expected Su Dian's reaction. He nodded and was about to leave, but Su Dian stopped him at this time. "Wait." The 12th elder turned his head in confusion and saw Su Dian's intelligent eyes flashing. Su Dian said with a smile, "During this period, you and the 4th elder will be responsible for Su Jojo's safety. If she loses even a hair, I will hold you responsible. The 4th elder and I will protect Su Jojo." The 12th elder was shocked. What did Su Dian mean? Had he and the 4th elder been discovered? If they really did something to Su Jojo, could Su Dian deal with them openly? Was Su Dian going to give up Su Jojo? The 12th elder thought of many things in an instant, but he didn't show it on his face. He nodded and said respectfully, "As you wish, head of the branch." "That's great. I'll be back soon." A moment after Su Dian left the study, a flash of light flew away from the mountain peak. At the same time, in the courtyard of Su Dian's mother, a middle-aged man dressed meticulously and with an ordinary face wearing a handyman uniform heard some words. "Uncle Guang, it's all up to you." The middle-aged man stopped the broom in his hand and looked at the woman who was sunbathing at the door of the room. The woman sensed his gaze and sighed. "Do you want to protect her at the cost of exposure? What's so good about Su Jojo?" Chapter 448. The woman shook her head and sighed. The plain-looking middle-aged man didn't answer. He suddenly stopped sweeping and turned his head to look outside. His gentle eyes flashed with sharpness. "What's wrong?" The woman glanced at the gate of the courtyard in confusion, but she didn't see anyone. She couldn't help but ask. The middle-aged man also had a trace of doubt in his eyes. After confirming for a while, he shook his head. I was wrong. It's nothing. At this moment, Su Li stood on the stone platform hundreds of meters away from the courtyard, looking at the warm and peaceful courtyard from afar. Her eyes were deep. Since that person can find my trace, his cultivation must not be lower than Huashan realm. Su Daiyin was supported by a practitioner of Huashan realm? Su Li pondered. The relationship between that person and Su Daiyin's mother was obviously not that simple. No wonder Su Daiyin could practice so fast with a practitioner of Huashan realm supporting her from behind. I wonder who will win if I fight with him. Su Li thought. Although she only comprehended a trace of the destruction sword intent, and the realm of sword intent had just reached a higher level, she speculated that it should not be difficult to deal with a practitioner of Huashan realm who had just comprehended the power of the willpower. However, she didn't feel that the middle-aged man was a beginner of Huashan realm. After taking a deep look at the courtyard, Su Li turned around and jumped off the stone platform and disappeared. At the same time, the middle-aged man sensed that the looming spy also fell silent. He didn't show any change on his face and continued to sweep, but many thoughts flashed through his mind. They have caught up. I can't stay here any longer. He glanced at Su Daiyin's mother vaguely and sighed in his heart. He didn't say anything in the end. After Su Li left Su Daiyin's mountain peak, she quietly returned to the courtyard. Su He was just taken away, which deterred many impulsive disciples who were jealous of the courtyard. During this time, except for Su Xianyun and others who visited the courtyard, there was no one else. It was really deserted. Su Li was happy. The more pressure Su Daiyin was under, the busier Su Xianyun and others would be, which made it more convenient for her to act. The 4th elder and the 12th elder dare not take action in a short time. Although Su Daiyin's delaying tactic is exquisite, Su Dingxian is old and smart. He will probably come up with a way to break the situation soon. Su Li sorted out what she had learned today and thought to herself, the key to breaking the game is nothing more than uncertainty about my body. In that case. A smile gradually appeared on Su Li's face. Let me give it a push. Outside the hall, stood obediently at the door with her head down, waiting for Su Li's instructions that might come at any time. After Su He was taken away, her thoughts faded. She just wanted to serve Su Jojo obediently until this matter was over. However, it was clear that some people's minds couldn't withstand the test. What was that sound? Suddenly heard a noise, as if a mouse was grinding its teeth. Again. Listened carefully and finally heard that the sound came from the main hall. But how could there be a mouse in the main hall that was full of formations? Is Su Jojo doing something? This thought appeared in her mind, and her heart was filled with curiosity. She glanced at the others, and seeing that no one was paying attention to her, she thought about it again, and finally couldn't help but sneak into the main hall. The sound of friction came into her ears from time to time, as if it was leading the way. Didn't doubt it and followed the sound to the back hall. At a glance, she saw that the stone door of the adytum used for practicing in the back hall was unlocked, and a touch of red light leaked out from it. She was slightly alert, walked to the door lightly, and peeped inside. The pungent smell of blood came to her face, and Er's heart trembled. But she saw a shocking scene. The whole stone wall was covered with blood beads, as if a large amount of blood had been sprayed on it and slowly slid down from a high place, dyeing the whole wall blood red. Her pupils trembled, and she looked down. Suddenly, she saw more blood, which gathered into a small pool in the middle of the uneven stone room. Why is there so much blood? Whose blood is it? Resisted the urge to escape from here immediately, and continued to stare. Finally, she saw a petite figure squatting in the blood mist and wiping the wall. She was clearly a delicate and pure face, but in such a bloody atmosphere, she looked extraordinarily terrifying in Er's eyes. That's Su Jojo. Clenched her hands, and her thoughts changed rapidly. She killed someone and is destroying the corpse. But why don't I see the corpse? No. Didn't she lose all her cultivation? How could she kill someone? Didn't wonder for too long, because she saw Su Li, who was wiping the wall, suddenly trembled and covered her mouth. A large amount of red blood flowed down from the gap of her palm like a small waterfall, and gathered along the lines on the ground into the blood pool. These are all Su Jojo's blood? Er's pupils suddenly shrank, and countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Finally, her heart was occupied by a speculation. I heard that Su Jojo was seriously injured and lost all her cultivation. The head of the family is trying his best to support her to recultivate. But judging from the scene in front of me, Su Jojo's body is obviously ruined, and it is impossible for her to recultivate. The result of her recultivating is that she keeps vomiting blood, and uses the blood as a medium to dissipate all the cultivation that she has recultivated. Er's body tightened, and she was really shocked by her own thoughts. If the truth was as she thought, she would definitely get a great reward if she told the first elder about it. But, if she guessed wrong, the result would be, Er's face was a little gloomy. Her life was at stake in a wrong decision. Was it worth it? As if there was a response, saw Su Li stop coughing up blood in the addendum. She took away her palm and revealed an extremely pale face. She looked at the bright red palm in a daze and sighed softly, "Master, I'm sorry to let you down." Hearing this, seemed to be given a reassuring pill, and she tiptoed away with joy. Her guess must be right. I'm going to report it to the first elder. We can't let anyone get ahead of us. An indescribable urgency filled Er's heart. Her eyes were full of the bright future of cultivation, and the words she had warned herself before had long been forgotten. Shortly after she left, Su Li's pale face gradually recovered. She reached out and waved her hand, gathering all the blood into a huge blood ball. After removing the impurities, they turned into blood lines and returned to Su Li's body through her pores. Blood, of course, was real. This little blood couldn't hurt her at all, but her blood poison was really weird. So far, she had only figured out some simple uses. If she let it spread, she didn't know what would happen. It was safer to take it back. It's done. Black Lotus Ring sprang out and laughed. As long as Su Dingxian dares to take action, the second branch of the Su family will be in your pocket. Don't be careless. Su Li's eyes were indifferent. Su Daiyin has a practitioner in Huashan realm behind her, but she lets Su Dingxian develop freely. Su Dingxian may not be simple. Black Lotus rolled his eyes. This little girl would smile at Hua Yan, Yan Zai and others occasionally, and even Mei Ruhan saw her smile. Only to Black Lotus, she was sarcastic every time and didn't give him a good look. Who did I offend? Why did I find such a host? Black Lotus became angrier and angrier as he thought about it. Finally, he directly shrank into Black Lotus Ring and didn't come out. Su Li didn't bother to pay attention to him and swaggered out of the courtyard. In a short time, she was completely out of the sphere of influence of the second branch of the Su family and flew to the territory of the seventh branch of the Su family. Shortly after Su Li left, Su Dingxian came to the courtyard with a large group of people, which immediately alerted Su Xianyun and others. Just when Su Xianyun was anxious for the elders of Su Daiyan's branch to arrive, everyone gathered in front of the addendum. The two sides confronted each other, and the atmosphere was unprecedentedly tense. Su Xianyun's face was extremely gloomy. Su Dingxian came with his people shortly after the master left. They must have colluded. He saw the expressionless fourth elder and the 12th elder mixed in the team and didn't intend to come over at all. His heart slowly sank. The master's situation was even worse. Su Dingxian entered the addendum. Although the trace of blood was extremely faint, he still caught it. First elder, the addendum was not like this before. It was full of blood. It was all Su Jojo's blood. Panicked when she saw the clean addendum. Su Dingxian showed a gentle smile and waved his hand to don't panic. If you don't want others to know, don't do it. No matter how clean Su Jojo cleaned the addendum, some things were still left. Was flattered by the first elder's comforting words and stood aside with a red face. Su Xianyun and Su Zheng looked more and more embarrassed. Su Jojo vomited blood. Why didn't they know? Did Su Jojo hide it from them? Where did Su Jojo go? Su Xianyun looked around. The whole hall was quiet, and it didn't seem that someone was hiding in it. Su Dingxian walked to the wall unhurriedly and touched the slightly rough wall with his palm. The traces of being wiped were reflected in his mind, and his smile became more obvious. Su Jojo is obviously terminally ill and will die soon, but the head of the family is obsessed with her and allocates a lot of precious practicing resources to her. How do you explain this trip? Speaking of this, Su Dingxian suddenly turned around, and his sharp eyes fell on Su Xianyun like a knife. Su Xianyun, you are the first disciple of the head of the family and the young head of the second branch of the Su family. Do you know anything about this? Su Xianyun's body shook slightly, but he resisted the pressure and retorted loudly, nonsense. Master has devoted himself to the second branch and cultivated many outstanding disciples for the second branch over the years. How could he bend the law for personal gain? I think a thief deliberately forged this addendum in order to frame Master. Su Dingxian didn't expect that Su Xianyun dared to refute, and his old face became cold. Su Jojo absconded to avoid punishment, and you still want to quibble? Ha 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 ha. Su Zheng laughed and pointed at Su Dingxian without any fear, and scolded. Su Jojo escaped. I think you, old man, have caught her and want no evidence. Su Dingxian, don't forget that you are the first elder of the second branch, and Su Jojo is the fourth disciple of the second branch. She is the future pillar of the second branch. You are so selfish to eradicate dissidents. Aren't you afraid of being blamed by the old ancestor? As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Su Xianyun and other elders changed. Su Zheng, the hothead, had a bad temper. He didn't know that his words had severely offended Su Dingxian. If it weren't for so many people who saw this scene, he really wanted to twist off the head of this arrogant boy and kick it like a ball. Bastard! You don't respect your elders. Is this what your master taught you? The fourth elder stood out and scolded. He was originally blamed by Su Dingxian because of Su He. At this moment, he immediately stood out to redeem himself when he saw the opportunity. Su Xianyun pulled the corner of Su Zheng's clothes, but Su Zheng didn't seem to feel it at all. He turned his head and scolded sarcastically, no matter how much of a bastard I am much more educated than some fence-sitters who like to climb the wall. Don't you think so, fourth elder? As soon as these words came out, the fourth elder's face immediately turned livid. He was so angry that his lips turned purple, and he couldn't say a word. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.